Good evening. I'd like to call Town of Grimsby Committee of the Whole for Monday, December 20th, 21st to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, just before we approve the agenda, I just have a couple of announcements. I just want to shout out to the Red Cross for the clinic that was operated here at Town Hall yesterday. They managed to give out over 400 doses. It ran really smooth. I'm happy to say I got my booster. I was number 227 out of 400. And it worked very smoothly, and everyone, while most people were very happy. And also I had the opportunity to attend the Peach King game where it was Dougie Nickerson Memorial Night. Dougie, as most of council knows and general public, passed away earlier this year. And it was actually December 17th was actually his, I think, 58th birthday. So we had the whole Nickerson family there, including staff member Paula Nickerson. And we unveiled a really just an amazing sign that will be put up on the way into the PK Center. So just two really great events. Now we need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, seconder. Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that the agenda for the December 20th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to adoption of the previous minutes. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that the Grimsby Library Board minutes of November 10th and October 13th, the Grimsby Art Gallery Board minutes of November 11th, Grimsby Museum Board minutes of December 1st, Committee of Adjustment minutes of December 7th, and Grimsby Art Gallery minutes of December 9th be received. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to delegations. Niagara Region Vision Zero Road Safety Program. Carolyn, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Town of Grimsby Council, for having the region here this evening. We're pleased to be here. I just wanted to confirm that you can see the presentation as we're just loading it up now prior to starting.
Yep, it's uploaded now, Carolyn.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Carolyn Ryle. I'm the Director of Transportation Services here at Niagara Region. I have Beth Benz, the Acting Associate Director of Financial Reporting and Analysis, also here this evening to present on the business case that was approved here by Regional Council. And I also have Judy McPherson here, who is the Transportation Coordinator, who's been instrumental in coordinating the meetings with each of the municipalities and assisting this evening with the presentation. So thank you for having us. Next slide. So as part of the agenda, I'll be speaking a little bit around the overall Vision Zero program. So what the business case and what the program looks like. We're here before you this evening looking for an approval related to the court's intermunicipal agreement, also referred to as the IMA. So I'll walk through what the changes are to that agreement that we're seeking the approval for this evening. And then I will turn it over to Beth to provide a financial overview with regards to the 2020 approved business case here at Niagara Region. And then I'll close with next steps with regards to us launching the Vision Zero road safety program throughout Niagara region. So first I'm going to talk about the community safety zones. Speeding is a primary crash factor in a leading road safety problem, that many of us are very well aware of. It contributes to approximately 1/3 of fatal crashes and serves as an aggravating factor in most crashes on the roadway. Niagara Regional Council has the authority under the Municipal Act to pass bylaws and initiate measures to ensure the health and safety of residents. In establishing community safety zones, the region has this as a tool to help make our roads safer. So across the regional road network, there are 38 schools that the region did an initial assessment on. And out of those 38 schools, we have approval and we've implemented 13 locations to date since September of 2019. There's a number of criteria in how each of the schools were assessed. And the intent as the program continues to expand is to target not just school zones where there's high walking of families to and from, but it's also to target high areas of activity around parks and retirement homes. I'm pleased to say that the John Kelvin School on Regional Road 14, Blessed Trinity Catholic School, Livingston Avenue between Roberts Road in Grimsby has already been designated as a community safety zone. Next slide. So how does this factor in moving into automated speed enforcement, also referred to as ASE? So ASE was launched in December of 2019 by the province. Niagara region was a stakeholder at the table starting around 2017, where we were able to participate on the legislation that was ultimately approved by the province in the end. Our business case speaks to 4 automated speed enforcement units that'll be rotated among the 13 community safety zones that have already been approved and implemented by regional council. So the one community safety zone in Grimsby will have an ASE unit rotated to it among the other 12. So what are the benefits of the automated speed enforcement program? We're looking to increase safety. We're looking to reduce speeds on our roadways, positive change in driver behavior, coordinate with the police on other areas of concern around speeding and other driver awareness issues that we're seeing on our roads, and increasing driver awareness, especially in our school zones. The revenues collected under any municipal ASE program per the legislation is that we need to support public local safety and educational initiatives. So any revenues above and beyond the court's cost, the regional cost, which Beth will speak to in a minute, the intent would be all these dollars go back into expanding and implementing other safety initiatives related to the program. The purpose of the next slide is just to demonstrate that there were a number of stakeholders, again, as part of the larger working group that Niagara region was a party to. You can see from Toronto down to London that there are 123 cameras already currently in operation. The charge volume to date is approximately 522,000 tickets have been issued in automated speed enforcement locations that were identified as part of the program. I think it would be fair to say that someone could take the slide and take the 522,000 charge volume, divide that by the cameras to try and get a rough idea of the number of tickets. Without knowing days of operation, hours of operation, it's not that easy of a correlation. However, the purpose of us showing this today was the number of tickets that have been issued to date, but also to show from Peel down to London, you can see the pilot studies and the municipalities have launched 1 to 2 cameras, and the region, Niagara region's business case is looking to have us come in with starting with 4, with the intent ultimately is to expand the program, similar to what you can see for those municipalities to the right that are looking to increase cameras. So if I could use Hamilton as a mere example, Hamilton started with 2 cameras as part of a pilot project, and they're looking to expand their program by 8 additional cameras. So we continue to work very closely with these municipalities, obviously on their programs, the success of their programs, the impacts they're seeing in their courts as a result of the launch of this program, and then also how it's been working with just the rolling out of the program, which again are best practices and information the region here can learn as we're rolling out our program. Next slide, please. So red light cameras, this is another form of automated speed enforcement that Niagara Region, as part of our business case, is looking to implement. This was introduced by the province in 2000. These cameras are proven to reduce right angle collisions by 25%. This has been studied and there's analysis and statistics around that number. The cameras are proven to be an effective means to reduce the incidences of red light infractions, making the road safer for all users. So the intent as Niagara Region looks to complete its complete street strategy, which again is moving away from a car-centric environment, looking for transit. We're looking to incorporate cyclists safely and other modes of travel. Incorporating the red light cameras will be something that will assist with not just car accidents, but also any other serious collisions and fatalities that can be occurring in an intersection with all these different modes on the roadway. The region's business case talks to 10 red light cameras to be implemented across Niagara Region. Again, there was an analysis done by a consultant that was hired by the region. They looked at all of the intersections, municipal and regional, regional and regional, regional and MTO, and regional and Niagara Parks Commission. They have prioritized those intersections, and the first 10 will be coming before council in Q1 of 2022. Again, pending all approvals as part of our process here to implement the first 10 out of the numerous intersections throughout Niagara Region. So other Vision Zero initiatives. So as part of the 1 to 5 year capital outlook, when I was there presenting on that not that long ago, a number of the items here were identified: intersection improvements, geometrics, and looking at that on each of the roadways. We have our annual signal and pavement marking program that we work closely in trying to assist the municipalities with. We've been looking at our mid-block crossings and how we can incorporate those with support not only on the regional roads, but also in coordination with the local area municipalities. And the complete streets is something that I just made reference to, in addition to the public outreach and the education platforms that the region will be looking to roll out starting Q1 and Q2 of next year. So these are ongoing programs that we will continue to put funding in dollars, whether they're annual or if there's any revenues again down the road from Vision Zero, the program, back into each of these initiatives, but they do fall under the larger Vision Zero initiatives as programs that are already well underway by the region. So with regards to the revisions to the Niagara Region Court's intermunicipal agreement, the approval we're seeking here this evening by council. Next slide. So why are we here? We're seeking unanimous support from all 12 local area municipal councils for changes to the Niagara Region Court's intermunicipal agreement. I'd like to note that if we do not get unanimous support across all 12 councils, we will not be able to operate the program. We do require the unanimous support. I'm pleased to say that we began these presentations the beginning of December. We've received 3 approvals thus far, and we're hoping to get all 12 between the end of December. We have a few more this week, and then we're working throughout January. The changes to the IMA are to recognize first the Vision Zero Road Safety Initiative, and it's to include that the region will lead the implementation, the operation, the oversight, and insurance, the legislative compliance piece for the Vision Zero initiative as the traffic safety initiative in the region. It allows for funds, net of court program costs, and Beth will speak to this in a minute, related to the Vision Zero initiative to cover all upfront operating and capital investment costs by the region to be reimbursed. Any revenue above this will be split 50-50 among the region and the local area municipalities, again targeting road safety initiatives. The agreement also talks to the terms where after 3 years, we will have further conversations with the municipalities as we assess the program. And after year 2, we'll start working on any additional changes on the expansion or any changes to the IMA that are required based on just how we're seeing the program running. Next slide, please. So again, why are we here today? The current agreement does not identify Vision Zero. The current agreement does not contemplate the province's guidelines for automated speed enforcement, which is ASC and red light cameras, and the legislative compliance in our reporting back to them in order to operate the program. And then the risks of the implementation to be assumed by the region And what I mean by that, we're dealing with the public outreach. Any questions, concerns, once the program is up and running, the region will be the main focal to answer and address those questions on behalf of the local area municipalities. We'll also be dealing with stakeholder engagement. So not only will we be working with each of the 12 local area municipalities, regional staff here in the various departments, we need to deal with the Niagara Regional Police as a partner, emergency services, and also businesses that may be affected with the launch of the Vision Zero program. There are significant upfront costs with uncertainty as we roll out the program that Beth will talk to under the risk profile. And then if I can just close on opportunities here, again, we are a current member of the ASC steering committee, so we're up to date with any changes to the program, how the program is operating, and we're also able to get information from our colleagues outside of Niagara region with regards to how their programs are operating. We are able to support a consistent set of delivery with using criteria, which we're happy to share with each of the municipalities as we continue to partner on issues and concerns that they're raising within their municipalities, manage resources to implement and expand the program. And then again, the main thing around the opportunities is the public outreach, the front face, and then coordination with our local area municipalities on the success of the program. I'll now turn it over to Beth to provide a financial overview related to the 2020 business case.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good evening. The next few slides that I will be presenting are intended to provide a high-level overview of the financials, largely based on the information received and approved by Regional Council as part of the 2020 budget process and in alignment with the proposed changes to the IMA. This slide provides a high-level overview of the estimated operating budget, again, as outlined in the 2020 business case approved by Regional Council. The numbers on this slide relate to our first full year of operations, which we're estimating to be 2023. The total operating costs for both the court program and region operations in both our transportation and business licensing divisions are estimated at approximately $4 million. We are estimating that the total operating cost of $4 million will be fully funded if we have ticket revenue from 32,500 tickets, which we're estimating 5,000 tickets to come from the 10 red light cameras and 27,500 from the 4 ASD cameras. It is anticipated that the ticket revenue generated from the program will allow for enough funds to cover both operating and implementation costs through year 1 to 3. This is another visual of the anticipated Vision Zero revenue expenditures and planned bottom line based on our first full year operation, and again, the 32,500 tickets. It's important to note that courts recognize ticket revenue on a cash basis, meaning that revenue is based on ticket revenue received in year, not based on the tickets being issued. 32,500 tickets could result in an estimated gross revenue related to tickets issued of $5.4 million. When we consider actual cash received, we're estimating that approximately 300,000 of the 5.4 million will not be received in the first year, resulting in 5.1 in revenue received. So that's the second box. And then when considering actual cash, the 5.1 is reduced to $4 million after victim fine surcharges are considered, and that is a mandatory provincial payment that we must submit. The 4 million is then further reduced to 2.3 million in remaining revenues after court Vision Zero program revenue or program costs estimated at 1.7 million, and then after regional costs, which are estimated at 2.3 million, the program does come down to a net zero position, meaning no net Vision Zero revenue distribution to the region are planned at this point. I've also flagged on this slide that we are anticipating approximately 750,000 in implementation site costs to get the sites ready. And it is anticipated that the region would be paid back these expenditures from future years Vision Zero revenue prior to any net Vision Zero revenue distribution. Some of the risks that I would like to flag, there are significant unknowns around the number of tickets that will be issued, challenged, and or not paid and could require significant collection efforts. Because we're not sure how many tickets will be challenged, we are flagging that there could be pressure in our court trial time capacity as a result of these challenged tickets. If we do happen to have less revenue collected than our expenditures incurred in the program, I'd like to draw your attention to section 7 of the amendment to the IMA, where we are stating that regional funding will be used to offset any in-year deficits to ensure no negative impact to the non-Vision Zero revenue stream through the courts. The regional funding provided will be repaid from future years' Vision Zero revenue prior to any future years' Vision Zero revenue distribution. And just to reiterate, the lands will not be expected to use any of their non-Vision Zero revenue distribution to offset the Vision Zero deficits, if there are any. And then as far as opportunities, the goal of the program is to change driver behavior, to reduce overall speeding on roads within the region, and ultimately improve road safety. And there is an opportunity on our side to align staffing levels in court services to ticket volume experience, which will allow us to ensure we are managing expenditures effectively and ultimately maximize net Vision Zero program revenue for distribution. And if we are in a position where we collect more ticket revenue than expenditures incurred, the net Vision Zero revenue will be distributed based on assessment, 50% to the region and 50% to the local area municipalities. And note that future year Vision Zero revenue will need to be used to pay back the region for any deficits that have been covered and implementation costs. And again, as Carolyn had noted earlier in the presentation, that any net revenue that is distributed to the local area municipalities as well as the region would need to be invested back into road safety initiatives and reported to the region to support our required ministry reporting. I'm now going to turn it back to Carolyn.
Thank you, Beth. So to close on next steps, as previously mentioned, Beth and I and Judy have been in front of a number of the local area municipal councils throughout December. We'll be continuing that in January of 2022. Our intent is to go back to regional council, providing a finalized amending IMA update with regards to hopefully the 12 unanimous approvals in support of the program. We're targeting February of 2022 for that. And then we'll also be seeking regional council approval on the execution of the vendor agreements related to the operation of the program. That's the vendor agreements for the automated speed enforcement, the red light cameras, and working with the Joint Processing Center, MTO, and any other agreements that are required. And we're targeting February, March 2022, seeking that approval for those vendor agreements to be signed, with the intent to go live in Q2 of 2022. The intent will be to provide an update back to each of the 12 local area municipalities with timing on the launch, and then to work collaboratively on the program and provide updates annually and whenever requested. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Clerks Office for all of their assistance in the arranging of having us here this evening, Director Wortman and CAO Schlang that helped in support with regards to the report before you for approvals. And we'll now open the floor up for any questions. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your presentation, Carolyn. We can handle questions now. Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. Thank you, Carolyn, for your presentation. Although I think these automated speed cameras are a terrible idea, and not just myself personally, although personally I do think they are. I reached out and I talked to some residents about this when you guys first implemented the community safety zones and started talking about the automated speed. That's, for people who don't know, those are the cameras. They put them out and they just clock your car and send you a ticket in the mail. And so I know some people that have lived in areas where they had those. And I know people in Grimsby that responded to me about this, and they said, no. Like, I didn't get any positive responses about automated speed cameras. And so I'm doing some math here. I think there's about 450,000 residents in Niagara region, and there's 32,500 tickets estimated in a year. That's one ticket for every 14 people, right? And then remember, those residents include kids who don't drive. And so, like, say divide it in half, that's a ticket for every 7 people. So it's not like that we're not going to get tickets. These are going to ticket the residents that we represent. And man, I can only imagine. I get the occasional person trying to contest a parking ticket or something like that in town. the amount of emails that I can imagine we're going to get about these automated speed cameras and any errors that they make and people that don't believe they were speeding. And then, oh gosh, I am not in favor of this. And so I had a question. Carolyn, I know you mentioned there was one community safety zone in Grimsby by Blessed Trinity, but I believe there's another community safety zone on Main Street East, just east of maybe Maple Avenue or no, east of, it's near Park School. I don't know the exact location, but it ends just after Park School. So I think there's two community safety zones in Grimsby. Can you confirm that?
Through the mayor. So thank you, Councillor Sharp, for your comment. So yes, there are actually two community safety zones in Grimsby. I actually have all 13 here in a list. So I missed by addressing the one that's on Park. It's Park Elementary School, Main Street East.
Yeah. So there's
So
one
I am
that
confirming there is a second.
there's one that goes from like Blessed Trinity until Central School pretty much. And there's one that goes from just before Park School until like Park Road. But what about red light cameras? Are there any red light cameras in Grimsby?
So through the mayor, so the red light cameras, we're looking to implement 10. The locations of those have not been identified yet. So we just finished a consulting assignment with an expert who understands the assessment of red light cameras, who's working on behalf of the region. A report will be forthcoming to our regional council, and we're targeting Q1 of 2022, where we will be identifying the first 10 that have been prioritized for red light cameras. So that information is not known at this time.
Okay, so automated speed cameras, man. I could put up a post right now. I could ask people what they thought, and I guarantee you the answers I'll get. And so I don't know. Maybe my colleagues can imagine. But thanks for your report. I'm not in favor of this. Have a good day.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. And thank you, Carolyn and Beth, for your presentation. Very interesting. Got a few questions. With regards to the community safety zone, one of the initiatives is reducing speed, obviously, Carolyn.
Through the mayor. So if I can speak to the community safety zones. So the community safety zone is targeting excessive speeds in areas where we're trying to promote active transportation with parents and students walking their families to and from schools safely. That's the intent of the program.
Great, thank you. With regards to that, for speed, how does it work for emergency vehicles and when these cameras are all set up, especially the red light camera or the red light speed cameras? If they're responding to an incident or a call, they're going to be exceeding the speed limit. So how will that work, Carolyn?
Through the mayor, it's a very good question, Councillor Cadwell. So we'll be reviewing that with all the emergency services per the Highway Traffic Act in our cooperation and coordination and working with the Joint Processing Center in Toronto. So there'll be more to come with regards to how they will be treated in light of obviously their speeds are going to be higher going through obviously an intersection or through an automated speed enforcement area pending the emergency. So there is the Highway Traffic Act we need to be following, but we will be working closely with them on next steps in the new year as we roll out the program on what that would mean to their line of business.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Obviously, I'm kind of wearing my own fire hat now, but emergency vehicles do have to stop at intersections where stop signs or red lights are, but as they're approaching. So yeah, I was just curious, if I can just add on with that fire side of things, does the region have any Opticom traffic lights set up at all where the emergency vehicle prioritizes the intersection and they do get the green light? Is there anything like that in the Niagara region? I know my old days in Burlington had quite a few of them. I'm sure Councillor Ritchie can attest to that. So does the region have any, Carol?
Yeah, through the mayor. So yes, for the fire, there is a priority that assists with them being able to go through an intersection.
Great, good to hear. Thank you. I was going to ask about the ticket process, but Councillor Sharp kind of touched on that, and I'm thinking maybe like the 407, you would get a ticket and it gets sent to you similar to that type of a setup. But obviously not as many cameras though when you're on the 407. The other thing I had was, sorry, just looking at my notes here. Approximately, Carolyn, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but how many kilometers of regional road are there, roughly?
Through the mayor, so we have over 1,700 lane kilometers of regional road network, and we're looking to implement 13 community safety zones, which is a very small fraction. And we're starting with, again, schools where we're targeting high activity and safer speeds within those areas. I can say, based on our initial analysis through the road safety program, the excessive speeds going through school targeted areas alone was something that is of concern, a big safety concern. And we hear a lot about it from the residents and the communities here to myself at the region, but also our own stats have proven there's safety concerns in a lot of the school zones that we need to address through this program.
Great. Again, thanks, Carolyn. Just a comment, I do support this initiative. I think it's great just from my former job that I had. And I think Councillor Sharp, with regards to emails and phone calls, well, they're just going to be sent off to the regional representatives from my perspective. So anyways, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I have a number of questions, and they kind of fall into the report though as well. Is it will Carolyn be still available to answer questions during the report stage, or should I ask now?
No, Carolyn will still be available to answer questions after Brandon's report. Okay,
I'll just key on a couple key questions at this point on the delegation. I just wondered why the year 2020 was chosen for the budget numbers when we're in 2022 and the effective date will be 2022. So should we not be looking, and it's a 3-year term that's being proposed. I just wondered why the 2022 numbers were not presented, as that's the ones that will be moving forward, and they're at 5.8 million anticipated. So if the finance, the region's finance delegation could speak to why we didn't use 2022 to 2025, that would help. And also the locations of the cameras, you mentioned they'll be rotated. There's going to be 10 red lights and I think 4 ASEs. Are they rotated annually? How often are they rotated within the regions, the locations? And I understand there's only 10 locations for the red light cameras. And I just wondered for the 4 ASEs, how often they would be rotated. So my second question, and that's it for now. I'll have a few more for the report. Thank you.
Good evening, through the mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor. I guess nobody really foresaw that we would end up here being 2022 after getting it approved in 2020, the 2020 budget. That is the scenario that we're facing. We did review the numbers, and there's been some puts and takes in our expenditures, but all in all, materially, the numbers that were presented in the 2020 business case are representative of what we expect that first year of operations to be. There'll be some puts and takes across some of the contracts and the staffing budget, but we did feel, because we had already put the numbers out to regional council and we had presented numbers to the CIO and the area treasurers group, we felt that it would be easier to follow the numbers and reference if we kept consistent with the numbers that we had presented, knowing that they were materially in alignment with what we expect 2022 costs to be.
I guess I would just thank you for that. I would just raise a concern that I don't think we're looking at salary figures that would be the same as 2022. 2 years later, we would look at there's pay equity and a bunch of other things that have been implemented since, and raises and union amounts. So I think there's a significant impact to those figures. I understand why you're saying you would use 2020, but I think realistically a lot's changed in 3 years. Thank you.
Councillor Vane.
Thank you. Carolyn and I'm sorry, I've forgotten the other lady's name. Thank you both for your presentations. Couple of comments more than anything else. First and foremost, I think your numbers are low. I think you're going to find numbers will be higher. People, especially with the pandemic, I don't know what brought it out, but people seem to have lost the concept of driving safely. A lot of people have. I shouldn't say people. I should say a lot of people have. And those numbers are very evident. If you just look at the OPP numbers of the number of cars they've seized over the past 2 years due to stunt driving, which is a minimum of 50 over. I personally, as every member of this council and probably every employee of this town has at one time or another seen a great number of speeders and people running red lights. I know if you look down at Casablanca and Winston Road, for example, most people think the red light there is just a suggestion. I honestly have seen very few cars that actually stop at that red light. Having said that as well, I know that Councillor Sharp raised a point about people complaining and that, but as in the past, having worked in law enforcement for 33 years, people often complain and say, oh, it's a cash grab, it's this, it's that, whatever. And, I always have a smart aleck remark. I always say, well, if you want to stick it to the man, just follow the law. I'm not terrified of these cameras or these any kind of enforcement. I don't speed. I don't run red lights. I got nothing to worry about. If you don't want it, why not? It's of course, nobody's going to want something where they're going to be penalized. So I agree with that. If you don't want to be penalized, don't speed, don't run red lights. And it's that simple. So all I wanted to say is I think your numbers are a little off. I think you're going to find a lot more. And I honestly will not take any comment or any email from any resident who gets a ticket and complains. You know what? I look at it this way. It's potentially the life of a child that got saved, or potentially the life of a pedestrian. You look at Toronto, before Toronto implemented these, they had pedestrians getting hit every 2 or 3 days, it seemed like. They were getting hit and a lot killed. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to ever buy that argument. I mean, and I don't care. You could have 100,000 residents send me emails and say they don't like it. Sorry, I'm not going to support. I am going to support this, but I'm not going to support somebody complaining about it. If you don't want the ticket, don't break the law. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. My question is there data that shows that when these cameras are in place, most people find, or what happened, the speed, I would say the speed, or does the data show after a period of time when people are aware that these cameras are in place that the speed slows at those particular spots?
Through the chair, so thank you for the question. So the intent of the program is to provide something that is referred to under the Vision Zero program is called a halo effect. So whether you're using ASC, red light camera, or a different non-electronic form of technology, we're looking to create something referred to as a halo effect. So there'll be geographical areas in which driver awareness will become more heightened and people will understand their driving behaviors on the roadway. That's the intent. It's fair to say that with the launch of the ASC, a number of the municipalities that have already presented are still collecting their data and their analysis. And what the region has agreed to do as part of the IMA is to present annual findings. So we will be tracking the number of tickets. We will be tracking how it's been working in our court systems. And we'll be providing that information back, and we're happy to provide, and we'll be providing that back to the 12 local area municipalities with regards to that. So the intent of the program, whether it's electronic form or in addition to the other measures that we've been using, is to create the halo effect to change driver behavior and provide increased heightened awareness in many geographical areas around all of Niagara region.
So thank you for that answer. And I guess that's where kind of my fear comes in a little bit, is I've seen it many times before. Burlington has some of these, they have red light cameras. And the talk is that, watch, and a lot of them are high impact collisions for red lights or speed zones where, community safety zones. And it seems like when people go from point A to point B, they take a look and they say, okay, I need 15 minutes to get from point A to point B. And what happens is in that travel time, they're like, oh, wait, but there's a community safety zone in that area. So they slow down for that zone, but then they speed up. So my concern is that regional roads will become safer, but then we'll have more concerns on our municipal roads. And right now, that's something that's, when I look at all the complaints we have, a lot of the municipal roads, and don't get me wrong, maybe we need to do something there too. But I don't want to see one problem shift to another area of the municipality, or another area of town, which then just basically says, okay, it's no longer our problem. And now it's the municipality's problem because people have shifted their driving patterns to speed on different roads. So these are some of the concerns that I have. I don't know if there's answers to them, but it's just some things. I'm going to wait for the presentation, but those are just some of the concerns I have.
So if I can just respond to that, Mayor Jordan. So the intent of the program is to get the program started. And again, the intent with the IMA was for the region to get it running, to assess the data, understand how it's working, in particular in collaboration with all of our stakeholders and the courts in particular, and then to come back and work and collaborate with the municipalities on the expansion. The intent of the program is to expand this on the regional road network, but also work with the local area municipalities on expanding it on roads that they are experiencing the same type of behavior. So the launch of this is targeting regional roads. The speeds are faster on a majority of the regional roads with the posted speed limits. So the intent again is to launch it there and then to transition it as we move the program forward and expand it to target municipal roads and streets as well. It's fair to say on the regional road network, and I'm happy if staff at Grimsby would like to speak to it, speeding is an issue that my office and transportation deal with daily, and there are safety concerns that we are trying to address in the communities from all those residents that contact us on changing that driver behavior for safer communities.
Thank you. So, yeah, I guess another question to that would be, and I appreciate to expand the program, but do we have a vision for that? How it would look like? What it would, like, I know we have 12 municipalities here. Do we have an estimated of how many more cameras? Because I mean, if you came to this council, I'm sure every single councilor here has a street that they would like one of these cameras on. So that's why I ask. I think it's, like I said, we're inundated with speeding throughout our town right now. It seems to be one of the major complaints in our town.
So through the mayor, so to answer that question, so the one opportunity that I spoke to very briefly on the one slide talked to the coordination that the region will be able to assist with the overall program and working with its colleagues at each of the local area municipalities. The importance around having criteria and assessment of each of the areas is there's a long list of criteria that we've been using to assess community safety zone locations as well as red light cameras. So in using a consistent metric that we have already been using to identify the first, that'll be something we'll work very closely with our counterparts on, and that will help us identify other locations and prioritize those locations as we work together to expand the program.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think I got an answer to one of my questions, so I'm just bringing it back forward because I got one answer, but not the other. I just wanted, again, if Carolyn could respond to how are the 10 red light cameras going to be rotated and the 4 ASE cameras, and it would be neat if you could also then comment on whether the consultant's prioritization documents will be available on the region's website so people can understand the metrics and how the initial 10 locations were determined.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. I was going to come back to you on answering that. So the 10 red light cameras, again, the report will be coming forward in Q1 2022 to discuss the criteria that was used and how we prioritized the first 10 out of the many signalized intersections throughout all the Niagara region. So that report will identify, again, the process by which the region used in order to identify those. The duration with regards to them being out in the field will be a minimum of a year. And then there'll be the conversation again as we are assessing how they are working on whether they should stay in that location, whether they should be relocated to a new location, or whether, or in addition, what number of additional locations do we want to add on to the first 10? So that's strictly speaking about red light camera. With regards to the launch of the ASC program, we're only ordering 4 units to start, and we have 13 locations. Throughout the course of the first year, all 13 locations will have ASC at those locations, and we're still working out the timing. So whether they're there for 3 months or 4 months, we're still working out the timing. But the intent is to rotate the 4 pieces of equipment to start across the 13 community safety zones already implemented. And again, to assess and report back annually as to the progress, because the intent will be to come back looking for the expansion, which will be purchasing additional ASC. There'll be conversations about expanding community safety zones. So that conversation will be happening after we get the program launched and we're assessing it.
Thank you very much, Carolyn.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you. Through you to our presenters. Thank you very much for your presentation. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Vane, that I would support this. I've been kind of waiting to see it take hold. It's something the province had implemented many, many years ago, and now we're taking steps to do something positive about it. I think it's a great way to protect especially our young people, and I look forward to seeing some of the results and I think the program's going to be have a positive effect on safety in those community safety zones, and red light cameras. I think we need them. There's too many people that are not obeying the law. So those are the ones that will complain, but what can you say? If you obey the law, you don't have anything to worry about. So I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Carolyn. What I'm wondering is, are the signs that are posted for community safety zones far enough in advance that a person can kind of go, oh, better check my speed. Oh, I'm over, better slow down. You know, that's one question. So the idea is not to get a gotcha, but really to, you know, reinforce the idea of just not speeding, check your speed. Okay, I got to slow down. The other thing is, have you considered on top of the community safety zone signs where it says community safety zone, this is the speed, put a flashing light on it, because then you can put the same kind of sign with a flashing light somewhere, and then the person would automatically associate that with the camera, and you'd be able to have a multiplier effect. So those are my two questions.
Thank you, Councillor Vardy, and through the mayor. So with regards to the community safety zone, so there will be an awareness period that we need to comply with prior to rolling out the program. So once the community safety zone is identified and has ASC put in its location, we need to do a period of awareness. There's so many days, I can't recall the number, whether it's 30 days, I think it's around 30 days, where we need to give a public awareness that this is now a community safety zone that has ASC in there. So there will be a public awareness period, and it also will be put out through the media. So we will be identifying community safety zones and the launch of the program with information around, obviously, the Vision Zero platform coming here to Niagara region. With regard to
well, if I could just bring it back to my question, will you have signage that details that it's a community safety zone far enough back from the community safety zone so that people have an opportunity to check their speed and not just get ticketed?
So through the chair, yes, there are regulations and distances and where signage need to be placed that we will be complying with. So yes, and I will also make that a note, and I will confirm that with staff who will be implementing the program. So the answer is yes to that.
And will there be lights, like a flashing light, to draw people's attention to the sign?
So I need to take that question back. I do believe, if I recall, as part of some of the initial conversations, there was talk about whether they should be identified through a flashing light or not. I can't remember the resolution on whether that was approved. as part of the stakeholder and working with the province, or whether there was an issue with that. But I'll take that back and check it. With
Right.
regards to signage and awareness, that's all outlined. We need to follow it through the legislation to be compliant, and we will be administering that. But I'll take that back, the flashing light. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. To the presenter, I just have a couple other questions. Will these cameras be inside vehicles?
Through the mayor, no, they will be not. They'll be installed on infrastructure at the side of the roadway.
So they'll be in a fixed location on maybe a street post or
Through the mayor,
Where?
similar to that, yes. So we'll be putting a post out there, and the camera will be fixed to the post. Yes.
okay. My other question is with regard to the community safety zones. They have double fines. Will the automated speed fines be double, or will they be a regular price fine?
So through the chair. So currently, if you go through a community safety zone, yes, the fine is doubled. Depending on the speed that is captured once you go through the ASC above the threshold, it's not doubled. There's a factor and there's a ratio towards how the ticket is issued. So it's not strictly doubled. It depends on how high you're moving over the threshold in the area.
Okay, and that is a perfect into my third question. What is the threshold? Is there, like, if you're a kilometer over, if you are, like, sometimes if you put on the wrong size winter tires, you can be out by a few kilometers on your speedometer versus I mean, if you're doing 53 or 54 in a 50, will that land you a ticket?
Through the mayor, so through the mayor, the threshold won't be disclosed, and most staff won't know the threshold. I can say we're targeting excessive speeds in the school zones, which is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. The threshold won't be released. That's kept confidential. And if I can just go back, sorry, go ahead.
Is that only during the school times, or is that because school zones are not during the evenings, are they?
So a community safety zone is 24/7. The automated speed enforcement for the first year, we will be figuring out the number of days and the time of operation. We're still working through that.
So they won't be 24 hours a day.
Through the mayor, we haven't identified if any location will be 24 hours yet. That'll be part of upcoming discussions and reports. The community safety zone is effective 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Okay, the community safety zone is effective, but we're talking about the automated speed cameras here, because the community safety zones are already in place. So when will this information be available? Like, it's not going to be available for us tonight to vote on it.
So through the mayor, so the intent of us coming this evening is we're seeking an approval related to the IMA changes to allow the region to operate it. So it's around the premise of us operating and leading the Vision Zero program, which is red light camera ASC through Niagara region. With regards to the number of pieces of equipment, we've identified that. With regards to the locations, we've identified that. Whether they're working 24 hours, 7 days a week, that will be determined at the discretion of staff as we continue to assess and roll out the cameras. It is needing to be coordinated with the courts and the resources on any impacts when issuing tickets has on the court system. So that's the balance the region will be working closely with the courts on as tickets are being issued.
Okay. So you said there will be a factor that, depending on your speed above, there will be a factor of how much you get fined?
Through the mayor. So I believe one of the reports that was should have been attached to the approval report that's before you does outline, for example, depending on how many kilometers you're over the posted speed, there are dollars per kilometer. So that is identified there in that report.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you through the mayor. Sorry, just one other question I have is who gets the ticket if there's an infraction?
Through the mayor, so the owner of the car, so whoever is registered on the car, they are sent the ticket. So for example, if a child is speeding in the car, it doesn't differentiate. It goes to the owner of the plates.
Right, and that's where my I believe with some of these is that even though there's a fine, a lot of times there's no points associated with it for insurance purposes because you can't guarantee who's behind the wheel, correct?
Through the chair, I don't believe there's any points that are taken away because again, they can't identify who was driving the car, whether it was the owner of the car or a friend or a sibling, a child. So yes.
Right, and that's just don't get me wrong, I totally believe in the safety of these things, but again, a concern I have is that we may be handing tickets out but not resolving any problems, especially if it's not the actual owner of the vehicle that's speeding. Although they may be responsible to pay the ticket, or that would be something that could tie up the courts and so forth. But with the new AMPS policy, it's just pay the ticket and no opportunity to appeal or even go through the court system. I don't know how that would work. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I just have one just because it wasn't brought up tonight by council. I noticed in one of the graphics that the city of Toronto has 50 cameras and they issued 280,000 tickets, and the city of Brampton 50 cameras, only 30,000 tickets. So I looked up to find the answer on this, and it's because tickets are tied up in the Brampton court and a lot of them are thrown out. So Carolyn, do you think that there is any issue of that happening in Niagara?
So through the mayor, great question. So are you referring to the table that I showed tonight, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So that slide speaks to the tickets that were issued. That slide doesn't talk to the number of tickets that have been paid out. So it's fair to say that a ticket is issued. Yeah, again, we're going to all be assessing on whether they're paid immediately or whether somebody would like to deal, obviously, with the courts to appeal it. So that's a little bit, I think, of where a number of those municipalities are right now. So that graphic speaks very specifically to the number of tickets issued, and any information on what's been paid to date. We've not been able to get that information because a number of those municipalities are still assessing due with the more recent launch of ASC in their communities. We will be dealing with the same situation down here. There will be those who receive the ticket that pay it, and there will be those who wish to appeal it, and they will try to appeal it through the courts.
Great, thank you. And thank you for an excellent report. Seeing no further questions or comments, so you need a mover and seconder to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that the delegation from the Niagara region regarding the Vision Zero Road Safety Program be received. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to report DPW 21-32 Vision Zero Niagara Safety Program. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. The report before you this evening is in support of the region's Vision Zero program, as outlined in Director Ryle's presentation. Director Ryle and her team did an excellent job in outlining the program, so I don't think it's necessary that I go through the details of my report. Just generally, I'd like to say that the ASC program, I think, is in support of the various initiatives that the town has in place or is putting in place with respect to traffic safety. So appended to this report, we've provided you a copy of the amending agreement, which we're recommending council approve this evening. Happy to take any questions if there are any, and also Director Ryle is here if there are any additional questions.
Thank you, Brandon. I see Councillor Bothwell has a question.
Thank you again, Mayor Jordan. So reading through the report, the one paragraph on page 5 of 8 where it states a minimum commitment of 3 years is being requested. This will allow the region enough data to assess the program. There is a financial risk initially, as there are significant unknowns associated with volume, staffing levels required, timing, and collection of infraction revenue, and a minimum of 3 years of 100% of the Vision Zero infraction revenue in excess of court services operating costs is anticipated to be required to cover the region's investment over those 3 years. It talks in the report about significant investment, and it talks about a lot of unknowns. And again, as I mentioned previously, I have a concern regarding the funding model, starting with 2022 numbers when we're in, with 2020 numbers when we're in 2022. So I don't really see how those projections have been shown, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I also believe that it also talks about increasing capital investments potentially after year one, and a working group deciding those types of things. I have concern about the significant investment, the significant risk, and the amount of unknowns with respect to this program, considering it's only been in effect since 2019. And there's only 11 municipalities in Ontario currently using it, and 4 that are proposing a pilot or on a pilot. I'd like to see the investment of these funds, the 5.8 or 6 million a year, going towards increased police presence in the community, on the ground, actual enforcement of where it's needed. And I really appreciate that the region, one of the regional councillors spoke at the last regional council meeting and said he wanted the police services, our staff sergeants, to come to each council and to speak about to our councils and ask our councils what we want and what we need. And I really look forward to that, because I think that's where we can relay what the concerns of our community are and what our special needs are, hopefully looking at some increased police presence and support financially for the police services to do that. I think having that physical presence versus an automated enforcement measure is a stronger tool to use for us. So it's just because of that, I'm just on those points. I'm not comfortable with the proposal as it's being put forward today. I think there's just too many unknowns, especially with the revenue generation. And then it talks about the region funding any deficiency. So if the monies don't come in and tickets don't come in as proposed, the region would fund them. Well, that would be from taxpayer funds to cover any deficit, and it would be recovered from Project Zero or Vision Zero revenues for future years. So that could potentially be a domino effect where there's deficit after deficit after deficit that the region covers out of some other funding envelope, but then tries to recoup from revenue sources in excess, which may not happen. Just too many unknowns for me. Thank you.
Through the mayor. So thank you, Councillor Bothwell, for your comments. So with regards to the program, at least from my perspective, there's no risk to the municipality in the launch of the Vision Zero road safety program that the region is embarking on. And I'll turn over to the financials for Beth to address the concerns you're seeing between the 2020 and the 2022, because from our math and our analysis, they're very minor in detail, but I'll have her talk to that. The important thing with the program is that this is a collaborative program and working with the Niagara Regional Police. So the police are out there assisting us right now with the 13 community safety zones. The intent of the program is to continue to use the police support in other areas throughout the region, because the 4 ASC targeting the 13 community safety zones and the 10 red light cameras are small in number compared to the safety concerns being raised to the region with just the driver behavior that's currently happening there. So it is a collaborative and a partnership on how we're rolling out enforcement, who can't be everywhere, in addition to an electronic means to help supplement in those areas of high risk where we're dealing with major safety concerns, especially in school zones. So with regards to the financial risks and the fact of the 2020 to today's current date, I'll have Beth address that.
Through the mayor, again, thank you for the question, Councillor. I think just to focus on the total gross cost of the program, what we're saying is $4 million. There are numerous pieces of that. A large amount of those costs are contracted costs for the vendor, for the equipment. We do have to pay the MTO and the Joint Processing Center, and those costs are largely based on a per ticket charge. So if we had less tickets, if we didn't collect the revenue, we would have less costs. And then as far as the staffing levels are concerned, if we didn't see the ticket volumes coming in, I did highlight that on my slide as an opportunity. If we aren't seeing the charges, we're not going to upstaff the model if the volumes aren't there. We don't need the staff to process the ticket. So we have a lot of levers to pull to manage those costs. The total salary cost that we're talking about between ports and transportation at the highest in 2020 was $1.2 million. So 2% on that is roughly $24,000 a year times 2. You know, it is a $50,000 cost differential. I didn't want to get into the details of each of the line items within the business case, but we did estimate also those contractual costs were based on the contract at the time. City of Toronto actually procures on behalf of all the participants. And one of those contracts that came in actually came in a little bit lower than what we had budgeted for in the business case. So between the two items, I do feel confident for all things being considered. And we did know there's lots of estimates in relation to the ticket volumes. But I do feel confident that we would be able to control the costs and manage within the budget dollars that we've established or estimated originally. And we will report back to regional council and the local council on an annual basis, just around the status of the program, so that you have comfort that, you know, we're just not spending a whole lot of money behind the scenes without a lot of consideration to the revenue streams. I think actually budgeting for a net zero distribution is probably conservative. And that's why we're only doing 3 years as well, so that we can get a better idea of what those volumes are. Are they a lot larger than what we're estimating, and we're finding a lot of tickets are being prepaid and not taking up port and resource time? Then we can run the cameras more, if that makes sense, and collect more ticket revenue. So there's a lot of variables there, but I do feel like we have enough line of sight into what's going on to be able to manage those, and we will report back before, you know, we get too far down the path where, you know, we do have a large deficit to deal with. And like we said, the region would manage that to ensure that there's no impact on the non-Vision Zero revenue distribution. I know that's really important to a lot of the municipalities.
I appreciate that. I just note again that even in this model where you've got 2020 to 2022, it goes up 500 and then 750,000 in the last year. So we're looking at from 2022 to 2025, a significant increase each year as well for the capital and the investment and the operational costs. I also think that, as you mentioned, and as the mayor mentioned, the issue of tickets being clogged within the court system could exponentially increase the amount of the court costs. And somewhere down the road, we might find that they then charge back because they need additional staffing levels or whatever to manage the workload of the people who are challenging those tickets. So those unknowns just kind of make me uncomfortable with the project, the way it's presented, and being, again, only assessed since 2019, there hasn't been a strong, like in my mind, enough of a compelling argument to invest that significant amount of money of taxpayer dollars into that initiative this time, when I'd rather see it again more focused within the municipality towards targeted police services. Thank you.
Councillor Vane.
Thank you. I have to agree 100% with Councillor Bothwell that I would love to see more targeted services, but unfortunately, every time anybody has talked about increasing policing, taxpayers goes nuts, because when you consider the cost of hiring, training, paying a police officer, each police officer is going to cost you, I'm guessing here, around $200,000 to $250,000 a year. For everything. Now, keeping in mind as well, a police officer could be doing radar and a bank robbery happens, you've lost your radar. Right now, the reason we have very little traffic enforcement by the police, and that's not to say they don't do a lot, they do, But the reason we don't have very much as we would like is simply because the police are short-staffed. And if you give them more staff, it'll give them more time to deal with certain crimes. Crimes are on the increase too. So I think we're being very unrealistic if we think we're going to add more police officers. It's just not going to happen. The costing for policing is incredibly high. It's and I'm talking from personal knowledge here. I mean, it's just, I think if we don't do this, I'll tell you what is going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt at some point. It's going to happen. And then the residents will go nuts and say, why didn't you do anything? And so I get, we're all worried about getting emails and we're going into an election year. I get all that. I really do. But I mean, we are elected to do the best for the community with the best we have. And now I believe this is the best choice, is these cameras have proven to work. You talk about the court system, which is fully funded by the province, has nothing to do with municipalities at all. If they need to hire more justices of the peace, they've been talking about that for years. They need more justices of the peace to do traffic court. They need more judges to do criminal cases. That's nothing to do with municipalities. That will never affect us. It's simply a provincial thing. The arguments against this, I'm sorry, I just don't buy into them, but maybe I'm biased because I've been in the system too long. But hoping for more police is not the answer. And hoping the courts will suddenly get better. It's been clogged for 30 years or longer. I'm just going on my experience. I just think that we're missing an opportunity if we don't support this at the end of the day. Anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, need a mover and seconder for the resolution. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vane.
Recorded vote, please, Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Bothwell,
No.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes.
Councillor Frake is absent, Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Councillor Sharp,
No.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
No.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's 4 defeated.
All right, moving to the consent agenda. Need a mover and seconder for Councillor Vardy.
I'd like to lift 7.1A.
All right, Councillor Bothwell.
Same, thank you. I'm all good.
All right. So Councillor Vane.
Sorry, I don't know if this is the right time or not, or if I missed it on the other agendas, but the conversation we had about the change to voting was on a, did I miss that on the previous, we approved the previous minutes?
I think that'll be in the council meeting minutes from the previous council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sharp.
All right, we need a mover and seconder for the remainder of the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that the committee of the whole hereby approves the following items and that the various consent items be approved on the recommendation as contained therein. Report FCR 21-07, lease agreement. Report DPW 21-35, Grimsby DWQMS risk assessment report. Report DPW 21-34, drinking water QMS operational plan endorsement. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we'll move to 7.1A, the lifted procurement report, FIN 21-37.
Yes.
Councillor Vardy?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at the HVAC system that was purchased for the library and art gallery. And what I'd like to know is, with this HVAC purchase, have we included HEPA filters? Like HEPA filtration? Given that we have COVID, I think anytime we're doing an HVAC purchase, we need to include that. So if someone could answer that question.
Through the mayor, thank you so much for the question, Councillor Vardy. My name's Adrian. The procurement was put out prior, and with the HVAC systems, that is quite a specific question and would probably have to be asked by the Parks Department to put it together. But I would be very sure that they would include HEPA filters, but I can't give you a concrete answer right now. So if I could get back to you, that would be greatly appreciated.
I see that Sarah is listening in. Is it possible we could ask her if she's available to? Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Councillor. I would, as Adrian said, I would just to give you a specific answers to what exactly was in the specification. I don't have it in front of me, and I would want to ensure for accuracy, I give you the right information. So I'm happy to give you that information once I check it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
I don't know if staff wanted to actually speak to the report first. We're kind of jumping in with questions before they've had the opportunity to speak to it. Adrian, right? Adrian? Yeah, thank you.
Correct, yes.
I just have two quick questions. I don't see the Grant Thornton auditor sole source award there. That was the one that was multiple years. I think it totaled 150K over, and it's been renewed for another 3-year term. And I don't see that there. I just wondered, the other one I wondered about was the City View. The City View amount there, if it was related to the grant, the modernization grant that was given to planning, the City View planning module, because they received a grant for the modernization of project of 42,467, I think. So just a question about those two. And then is there a way that we can have the report identify the source of the funding? So whether it's was through the levy or through reserves or through whatever, just or grants, and what the procurement source of funding is for each of those items. If you could answer that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So for the Grant Thornton auditor, since that was 150,000 over 3 years, that is considered a non-competitive. From my knowledge, that did go to council with Melanie presenting that to you guys with the approval going through. So that was not included in a sense of it was brought to you guys for discussion to go through with that. In terms of the City View question, yes, they did receive a portion of the modernization grant that would go to it. There are actually a couple things on the list here that include the modernization grant or other grants. So yes, you are absolutely correct. And then the third one, to identify the source of funding, we can definitely take that back and discuss for future reports, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be great, because I think it's important that we know, and I appreciate that because council dealt individually with the Grant Thornton one, that it's not on here. I think it would be helpful still to show it as part of the overall procurement activity. I don't know. It's just, I think I'm missing that. I'll miss that otherwise. And I appreciate that you will look at identifying the source of the funding for future reports. That would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about the town hall office rearrangement costing $46,000 and 46,249. I wonder if someone could explain to me why that was so expensive.
Through you, Mayor.
CAO?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Firstly, when we presented the 2021 budget, we put in $85,000 one time for the compensation review and modernization of the town hall to expand the capacity. Many of the offices here aren't set up for remote working, the hybrid that we're looking at, some satellite offices here for people that aren't in the building to come in, and extending the life cycle of this building for 10 years and beyond. So that includes some modules to be able to do that. So with the compensation review was about 30,000, and this was about 50, well within the 85,000 budget that we provided to council.
Yeah, I guess, I appreciate, but I still don't understand why it was so costly. Can you give me some specifics of why it cost $46,000? Because what you're telling me is not, it's not really giving me an indication of sort of what you've done. Have you moved walls? Have you, 46,000 is a lot of money.
So Brandon worked with me on this, so Brandon can expand exactly what modules and walls we moved.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So actually, we're creating 8 additional workstations here, 4 in one of the interior offices and 4 in we're calling our pilot area, which are near the front. If you've been in the town hall, the front filing cabinets, all of those workstations come fully equipped with a chair. We're also creating some additional storage space with respect to drawing storage and stuff like that will be purchased as well. So that kind of outlines the various costs that are involved with that purchase.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions, thank you for the report, and need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that report FIN 21-37 biannual procurement report dated December 20th, 2021 be received. All in favor? That's carried. Now we're moving to report CAO 2021 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Update. CAO, Rachel, welcome.
Hello, good afternoon or good evening, Council. And so through you, Mayor, in this report, we've outlined the various ways that we've advanced diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, both independently from a town perspective, as well as in partnership with local area municipalities at the regional level. So from the Grimsby perspective, we've engaged in various initiatives over the 2021 year to advance DEI. So as you're aware, we recently completed a full compensation review that ensured we are pay equity or gender equity compliant across the corporation, which was a really huge accomplishment for the team. On September 30th, we ensured that all staff were able to observe the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And part of this was by working with an Indigenous coordinator to share educational resources with staff regarding the importance of the day as well as the history behind it. Most recently, our people leadership team, which consists of approximately 34 managers, supervisors, and directors, all participated in DEI training during a people leadership meeting that was held in November. So part of this training was to discuss how we can identify and deal with biases, both in our personal and professional lives. And then from a community perspective, the team continues to offer various recreational and cultural programming that's accessible to all. So some examples of this is our recent engagement in para sports, our rate assistant programming, and also the work that's going on behind the scenes for the Peach King Center expansion. And then from a regional perspective, as you know, we have been a part of the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities since 2020. And one of the working groups from that coalition is a diversity, equity, and inclusion working group. So this year, some of their accomplishments includes the finalization of a human resources, hiring, and promotional best practices, which outlines how to promote DEI across the town. And this will be shared with all local area municipality HR representatives. Additionally, the region has formed a diversity, equity, and inclusion advisory committee that is looking to release a 5-year DEI action plan in 2022. So as part of this, a public survey ran from November until December 1st, and it was very positively received. So over 2,000 residents either fully or partially completed the survey to comment on how we can improve diversity, equity, and inclusion across the region. So once the results have been analyzed, they will be shared with coalition members and will definitely be influencing the action plan that's targeted to be released in 2022. So from an operational perspective, waiting to form a new committee, such as a DEI committee, until after the 2022 election will ensure that members can create a mandate that complements the action plan that is to be released at the regional level. And I believe the town clerk has some additional comments as well about why operationally it makes sense to wait until after the 2022 election.
Sarah, go ahead.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rachel. So with elections now only being 10 months away, it's now a very short time frame to be establishing any new committees, and many of our resources will now be diverted to running the election. So usually in an election year, many of our committee meetings will start to wind down. So we recommend that considerations of any new committees be made in the new term of council in 2022 and to align with the new sets of strategic priorities. And once the new term council establishes the priorities, I will be discussing with the new council or advisory committee structures and ensuring that it meets all our new initiatives. So a DEI committee will also align better after the elections as it can capture the mandate and goals of the regional DEI action plan that is targeted to be completed in 2022, which Rachel just mentioned. And as for terms of references, it would be most appropriate that the advisory committees develop their own to ensure that all different opinions and perspectives of the external community advisors are incorporated. So at this time in our current term, we would be carrying out using the regional DEI advisory committee as a resource. So if there's any questions, Rachel and I will be happy to take them.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Rachel. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I appreciate the work put into this report, and I just have, I look forward to hopefully getting this on the table again with the next council that comes in and the next committee structures that are put in place. I know that the library has been a very strong advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the board has worked very hard to look at when we do our recruitment and looking at our strategic priorities, ensuring that we are fully representative of the diverse community that we serve and how we can better enhance and implement procedures into our practices to help with the recruitment of our replacement members, et cetera, to reflect that. So there's been a lot of work done by that committee, which I'm very glad to be on, that they're recognized as a forerunner in leading the way on that. And I look forward to the new council and the new year looking at this as a priority area and developing strategic plans and goals for the committees and for the town staff and the town operations and procedures as well. Because I think we need to not just put it in a report, we need to live it and show it in what we're doing in all aspects of our operations. And I would hope that that HR guideline that comes out on how the town can look at enacting DEI into their staffing, that we look at that part of it at least in the immediate future, not waiting for the next election, because I think anything we can do proactively now and moving forward and looking at best practices is helps everybody in the community. That's just my position. And thank you very much for the report. And I look forward to seeing more action and concrete action on steps moving forward. Thank you.
Great. Again, thank you, Rachel, for the report, and Sarah as well. Need a mover and seconder. Seeing no further questions, moved by Councillor Bothwell. Seconder, Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that report CAO 21-20 Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Update dated December 20th, 2021 be received, and that any new advisory committees, including the creation of a Citizen Advisory Committee on Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, be established after the 2022 municipal election based on the new term of council priorities, at which time committees may establish their own terms of reference based on committee-specific mandates to ensure effectiveness and efficacy. Recorded vote.
Mr. Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Bain,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's carried.
Now we move to planning and development. 11.2 report PA 21-49 Heritage Conservation District Study Update Report. Antonetta, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think Peter's going to share the presentation, and it's just a short presentation this evening that really is kind of what the report says, but I thought we'd go through it tonight. So thanks, Peter. Next slide, please. So staff continued to implement the endorsed strategy from the December 21st, 2020 council meeting. The council direction to staff is to return to council with the options set out by the consultant, including a defensible boundary. So just to remind everyone, that resolution that staff is following is up on the screen currently. Next slide, please. To remind everyone, this is the map. So during the December 21st presentation, staff expressed that the map included with the original and revised notice of motion would likely change during the HCD study process, as is natural. A reminder just also that these maps were not completed by Heritage professionals, and Heritage staff wasn't consulted on those. And typically the initial study area would be guided by saturations of heritage resources in consultation with cultural heritage specialists. And that's okay, we are where we are. The process of adding or removing properties from an original study area is one that follows best practices and is standard for a study of this nature. This is the purpose of the study prior to the implementation of an HCD plan, should it be determined that one is warranted for the Main Street area. Next slide, please. So the process that heritage professionals use when determining an appropriate study area for the HCD is displayed here on the screen. And this is taken right from the toolkit, the delineation of an HCD study area. So the red is you look for saturation of heritage properties. You also look for open spaces, and then you look for man-made transportation corridors like railways and roadways. And then green, you should also look for heritage resources with status under the Ontario Heritage Act. So note again that this boundary is not the HCD boundary, it is the study area. And the conclusion of that study will indicate if an HCD is warranted, and further what the defensible boundary of an HCD should be as proposed by the consultants. Next slide, please. The next slide is about misinformation. Staff and myself, we received a number of calls with some misinformation that we're hoping that it'll be helpful to tackle. So while the bulk of our discussion on the update surrounds the HCD study area, staff are concerned about some misinformation that circulated in the community, and we're duty bound by the ethics of our profession and to this Grimsby community to help provide factual information and make sure that that gets out in the community. The success and overall protection of this Main Street East area through an HCD is entirely based on a successful study process, defensible boundary, and that strong community support we've talked about since the beginning. Despite significant accomplishments in heritage, sorry, Peter, I'll just keep going. And despite significant accomplishments in the last 12 months, staff find themselves working in an environment of what feels like distrust and a misrepresentation of factual information. The conflicting information out in the community erodes public trust and leads to a decrease in support for heritage protection overall. So the misinformation we wanted to speak directly to was that there was a delegation that happened to council on January 21st, 2020. And here there was a three-phase approach that was proposed. The delegates presented a three-phase approach where Main Street East, Main Street West, and the downtown would each be studied individually. To be clear, there was no council direction with this delegation, and the challenge is that the presentation is being approved as is being interpreted as an approved approach by the community, causing a lot of confusing phone calls to mine and Bianca's office. Next there were questions around the authorization required to adjust the study area. The perception is that staff and consultants, heritage professionals, do not have the authority to amend the proposed study area. Authorization is not required to expand the study area. As explained, staff were directed to hire a heritage consultant to determine if the study area merits consideration as a heritage conservation district. And included within that determination would be the finding of a defensible boundary. The boundary extending to the Lincoln town line. Some members of the public have been under the impression that staff, without any authority, extended the boundary to the town's furthest east boundary and are confused why staff would do that due to a lack of heritage resources in that area. The notice of motion map indicated that the proposed study area should be to the town of Lincoln boundary. This map was again not prepared by staff. I also want to say the evolution that we're seeing of the boundary to date is a normal process and is following best practice. Another misconception that we're getting calls about is, will this increase our cost? There are no additional costs, as this is a common process that HCD studies follow. I'd also like to point out that there were some questions about engagement. So we'll say that I'll just share that a notice was sent to everyone in the current and expanded boundary area that we showed, as well as 120 meter radius. Currently, the engagement is asking the community for historical information. The engagement formally kicks off early January 2022, and all will have a chance to participate through a survey and mapping exercises. We all really care about the heritage in this community. And if we all work together and deal with some of this misinformation, we can move forward in a really constructive way to get a heritage conservation district and determine if one is warranted for our community. Our hope is that this report and this quick presentation this evening helps us move forward together, and that we all encourage the community to participate in the surveying and mapping exercises that are to come early in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonetta. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Antonetta, for the clarifications and how the process is moving forward. I know you have a lot of experience with heritage from your previous background on that. So anyways, just to you and staff, Antonetta, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the presentation for clarification. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. Originally, when we talked about doing an HCD, the original conception was downtown, east, and west, so that we would look at the entire community from both of its outward points, right? And so when we were looking at Main Street East, that piece, what was originally proposed, everyone thought, the planning comments were, that's way too big. And councillor comments were, there are a lot of things that don't, that's extending it way too far. So it was, when you came back, it was smaller. Now you're coming back and saying, no, it's got to be bigger. And while I get it, that it may be within the purview of you to do that, it seems like the logic that was applied at the beginning is not the same logic that's being applied now. So that's one thing. That's one concern I have. Now, I know you don't need to answer this question because you did it in your remarks, but I'm just saying I have a concern with that. The other thing I have to say I have a concern with, there's a kind of chastising tone with the public, because they've raised concerns. And, there's a certain defensiveness. And while no one likes to be criticized, I think that's kind of disrespectful to the people who, the residents who have concerns about this. And part of our job is taking a bit of heat. And so, I mean, this seems a little bit like we're going to, this is misinformation, I'm going to correct you. And it's not good. And it doesn't, if you really want to have a better relationship with residents in Grimsby, this isn't going to help it. Taking this kind of tack in dealing with issues where there is disagreement, this is not going to engender greater trust or a better relationship. So I just want to put it out there. And also, originally, when we looked at the original number of houses, I believe it was something like 200, they were contacted ahead of time. Then when it was expanded, it was like a surprise to everyone in the downtown area. Now you're saying, well, but we are going to consult them. But consultation is usually done beforehand, not afterwards. So I've just got a lot of concerns about what started out to be something good has turned into something that might be something questionable. And given that there is this lack of trust, I don't see how moving in this direction now is going to build the trust that's really needed. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'll try and address the three main points. First, about the Main Street East area, I heard the comment, it was always conceived to be Main Street West, Main Street East, and downtown. So again, like I said, operating on the council direction, that is not a council direction. When I joined the town here, there was an initial meeting with the Save Main Street group. And even from the Heritage Committee, the direction was Main Street East, first and foremost, is the priority. So we tried to clear up that conception is that there's 3 districts that we're proceeding with. Currently, that direction doesn't exist. Happy if that comes out as direction in the future, we can deal with that. So that's no problem. In terms of the misinformation, I'll say the reason why we want to tackle these things head on is because some people are either alarmed, confused, questioning the process about how the boundary has changed. And even just, we're happy to take heed. We're happy to answer all those questions. We actually welcome that dialogue. We want more of that to happen, but we want it to be in a constructive manner so that we can get a district, if it's warranted for this community, and a district that works for everyone involved. In terms of the study area, you're right. When that initial study area came forward, we said it's very large and we don't like it going to the town of Lincoln boundary. There's not a lot of resources there. So from our sense, we should really follow the resources. But I'm going to be clear again. Yes, we've said we're zooming out to zoom back in. But what you're seeing, this boundary, is not the district boundary. It's just the area the consultants are looking at so that they can come up with a boundary. So the boundary is not getting bigger. the consultants are doing their work and looking at all of the downtown, including the train station and all the pieces as per the Ontario Heritage Act, so that they can come up with that likely smaller defensible boundary. So we're still going to get a smaller boundary. We're just doing our due diligence by zooming out so that we can, in a very informed way, zoom in.
So
in terms of
okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, I was going to answer your last point about people being surprised. A notice was sent to everybody all the landowners in the area for this larger expanded map. So, and 120-meter radius all around that. So everyone who was supposed to get their notice got their notice. There was a conversation about some of the tenants who don't own the buildings didn't get the notice because their landlords didn't pass those on. So happy to address that. And we've met with the DIA, Mr. Williscraft, and we're going to be doing something separate to help the DIA. But their main thing is there still a chance to participate? And the answer is absolutely. It starts in January. So they'll have an absolute chance to participate. So I hope that helps answer those questions.
Yeah, that does. I have one more. Under whose direction was the boundary, the suggestion to extend the boundary? Was it yours or the consultants?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Like I said, we are following the Ontario Heritage Act. It's not under anyone's direction. It is best practice tells us we have to include the train station, and also our GIS maps all the heritage resources. So when the consultants see a large conglomerate of heritage resources, they cannot ignore it. They have to look at it, even for the simple fact of, does that help inform the Main Street East heritage so that we can understand the historical, contextual, associative value in all of those pieces. So the consultants and us, we discussed it, like there's a large amount of resources here, we can't ignore it. And the consultant said, we also need to look at the train station as per the act. Of course, that is their professional discretion to do that and to make sure that if we move forward with an HCD, we have a defensible boundary. So it's not direction, it's A, what the act says, and it's B, following the evidence that the community and the heritage gives us.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just have a few questions, and I guess I'm a little surprised that the consultant, when they would have initially reviewed the RFP and the 180 properties in the Main Street East area, looking at the 5 or so CHLs that it encompassed and the number of resources and other heritage features, that they would have said that's not enough, we need more. I just find that surprising that looking at the wealth of information from the archives available in the Main Street East area already, that they said those properties aren't enough, we need to make it bigger. I just find that unusual to go from 200 to 500 and then to take on that work and actually expand it into a downtown intensification area, which has a CIP and other toolkits already sort of guiding it. When it's the Main Street East area, the Main Street East area was the area that is under the pressure and the managed change pressures that were identified. The downtown is identified to do intensification and for great change and for huge infill. It's just totally different ballparks. And I just worry that what we're doing is we're going to lose one of those ball games because we're watering it down, and one of them is going to become a priority. And when you look at downtown, it needs its own, definitely. But what we got to focus on right now is the protection of managing the change within the area that's at greatest risk, which is our Main Street East, which is a totally different zoning designation, Main Street with huge setbacks, totally different from downtown. It's apples and oranges. And I just think for a consultant to have to now navigate, you know, what deserves to be in an HCD and a defensible boundary. Obviously you have two that are totally independent of each other, and which is going to get the greater attention. And that's what I just worry about, is that the attention was supposed to be focused on Main Street East, and we've now watered it down and put two different ball games on the go. My question to you though, Antoinette, is about the project steering committee that was supposed to be formed. In the RFP, it says under section 2.4, a project steering committee will be established comprised of, at minimum, the town's heritage resource officer, representative of Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee, local residential and commercial property owners, and other town staff as resources in the committee. And it says that that there was supposed to be periodic project steering committee meetings, at least 2 presentations to Heritage Grimsby and 2 community public meetings. It also states under 2.5, the success of the Main Street East HCD study, as well as the potential Main Street East plan and guidelines, will require ongoing interaction with the key stakeholders throughout a robust public engagement process. And the intent of the consultation, describing the concept, blah, 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 and determine community expectations and support, obtain public input on issues and feedback on the proposed boundary and subsequent guidelines. So on October 20th, the public asked some of those questions. I just am concerned that on October 20th, the consultant went into a public meeting. We didn't have a project steering committee in place to help with engagement to that first pick. There was no real input into how that should roll out to the community. I just feel we've missed a step there, and maybe you can help me understand that. And then at the October 20th meeting, I felt the public was a little bit left afterwards. You know, the consultant said, well, we want to hear what you want, what's important to you, what resources, what properties are important, we want to hear. But there was no way for them to get in touch with the consultant. There wasn't a real clear, here's our contact information. The Let's Talk Grimsby page does not have anything other than the YouTube recording of it. People won't know where to look. There was 4 pillars in that presentation, and this is what they said, we want you to tell us. So from October 20th to today, I don't think anybody's had, any of those people who attended that meeting have any idea how to provide that feedback, or to whom. It kind of left people hanging with, what do you want, when do you want it by, and how do you want it? And that, I think that the whole idea of a robust public engagement would have been to immediately get that Let's Talk Grimsby page updated, show those slides that were important, do some more, here are the questions, here's how you can reach us, here's where we want your feedback sent. I think we're moving into the next stage of this process without really having that, which the RFP says robust public engagement. We're missing that. So I just want to know, how do you see us moving forward with filling that gap and getting a better communication and messaging out to the community as to really what does the consultant want, and how can people provide that? Thank you.
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start by answering the first part, because I think there's enough there that we should, again, just have an open dialogue about. So it's not, the consultants never said there's not enough resources and we need to do more. What they said is the evolution of the downtown is so intrinsically linked to Main Street East along that corridor that we cannot do justice to Main Street East without looking at how the downtown and the train station inform Main Street East. So it's not that the areas are getting diluted in any way, it's that all of that richness and that history and that material, a historical context, the relationships between how downtown, its progression and expansion caused Main Street East and what impact it had on Main Street East, the more well understood that is, the more defensible of an HCD study boundary we have. So it's not diluting anything. And from our perspective, the more properties that get evaluated, there's a value add from that consulting, because it sets us up really well if we do a downtown piece in the future. So there is no dissolution whatsoever. It's all that rich history is being used to inform how we advance with Main Street East. So I wanted to tackle that one first. The second one, and I try and write notes as you're asking your questions, but if I miss something, please do let me know. In terms of the steering committee, typically what happens is after that first PIC, you try and identify some members of the community who might serve well on the committee to help get the word out there. So we'll likely be forming the committee in early January. And then that first meeting was their introductory meeting. They wanted to introduce themselves and ask people to start thinking about what historical information they might have and how they can contribute. We also, and I think Councillor Bothwell, we've updated you on this in a different meeting, but we did have issues with the collection of information from a privacy and IT perspective, and we had to sort through all of that information. So we haven't started collecting the information. Some people have emailed us the information of their properties on the Let's Talk Grimsby page. Both Bianca and my emails are there. And if I'm not mistaken, they did share their emails at the end of their presentation and say, you know, please do email us, but happy to get that up there if that's not up there. In terms of the robust public engagement, you know, we talked about having the whole digital virtual approach to it, but also having the surveys and the mapping tools put up in libraries, rec centers, you know, whatever we can to get the word out there. And we're going to continue to do that. We're also going to have more of these meetings where we can talk to the community. Stantec has met with, they've reached, or Save Main Street has reached out to Stantec. I believe they have a meeting set early in the new year. We were talking about maybe identifying them as a potential stakeholder group to be on that steering committee. And then like we did for Grimsby Beach, we'll ask the Heritage Committee to nominate one member to be on that steering committee. So I think all the work is there. It's just been slower also because we had the project manager who was on this file is no longer with the town. And we've been managing Grimsby Beach and other pieces, trying to move a lot of separate things forward. So we're doing our best to not lose the momentum. But as you know, I said to both you and Mr. Williscraft, we're happy to receive any advice or suggestions on how else you want us to engage, because we do want the engagement to be very robust and very comprehensive with the community. And we welcome all voices into the process. So I think we have a list to, you know, put the presentation up there, make it a PDF link, make it clearer. And those are all things that Bianca and I are actively working on. But like I said, the engagement truly starts in the new year, and you'll see a marketing and media campaign accompany that. So I hope that helps.
So thanks. Maybe you can help clarify again what the timeline is, because I think they were awarded in July. Their first meeting was October. And when are you seeing the next public engagement happening? And how do you see that? What do you see that looking like?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, like we said, in early January, we are hoping to launch a survey tool online and an in-paper format, as well as a mapping tool, which will work with Let's Talk Grimsby, where people can indicate what property they have historical information for, and then they'll be able to upload the information as well as any images that they want to be considered by the consultant to put together in the supporting HCD study. So that's going to be a January start date to that. I don't have an exact date. We told our consultants we'd reconvene first thing in January to start to set a launch date for all those pieces. We had contemplated doing it right before Christmas, but we thought the community is going to be distracted, as they should be, with family and friends. And really, let's just go with a clean start in January to the public engagement to ensure nothing gets missed.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through the mayor. Thank you for this report. I have to agree that I feel personally that there's been quite a bit of disinformation out there, and this clears up a lot of that information, I believe. And I think it's great to have this report come partway through. And you know, I sort of personally take a little bit of offense that people say that you know, comments in this report is you know, doesn't build trust. If anything, I feel that this report builds a lot of trust with the public, showing them exactly what is happening and moving forward. We all know that planning staff did not create the original map. The original map, what we voted on, was not created by our planning staff. And multiple residents were not informed with that original map. You know I went through a process myself of informing some of the residents. I went through a serious process. And in that process there, again, it just showed how important it is to have community support for any kind of HCD. And that's why we ask for all tools to be used to help guide the development or any future development of Main Street East. Because I guess my one question is, again, if with a heritage cultural district, if there's one house that's somehow attached to that district that's not heritage and they appeal, can it not be turned down? That's a question I have. So I don't know if they would ever include a house, but if you're looking to make a district, so like I said, so maybe the Robinson to whatever street, if there's a house in there that's not a heritage house and they appeal the decision for that heritage district, could that not be turned down?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think this is why we've said from the beginning, community support is critical to the success of any future district. Any property owner, heritage or not, can appeal the creation of a heritage conservation district. They may appeal the heritage conservation district in whole or in part. That's the district though, not the study. No one can appeal the fact that we as a town are deciding to study the area. And then the other thing is, it can be a heritage property or it could be a not heritage property. So typically in heritage conservation districts, they're identified as contributing properties, those that have heritage value, and non-contributing properties, those that do not have heritage value, but are still located within the boundary of the district. So an appeal can come from either of those. And this is what staff keeps stressing. And this is why we've proactively brought this report forward to you. We need to correct the misinformation, not to say you're wrong or not to not take heed, because if we don't, and we don't garner strong community support, we open ourselves to more appeals to the district, which ultimately can threaten and jeopardize our ability to have a successful district. So it's because we care about the heritage that we're having these tough conversations with council and the community, not the opposite whatsoever. And I think to another point, which, you know, I think answers both Vardy's question and your question, Councillor Vardy's question and your question, Councillor Ritchie, is that, you know, we've really tried to gain trust with this community, not really through actions, listing more properties that has been done in the last decade, really advancing our heritage portfolio, first dedicated heritage professional staff here at the town, heritage internships with Willowbank. Like, we have done more for heritage in the last 16 months than I can see in a really tangible, meaningful way. And all of that is in hopes that we build trust with the community so that they can see that we care. But at the end of the day, more properties are protected from demolition than ever before. We've strengthened all our internal demolition protocols. So, I mean, and I've said this before, we're very proud of the heavy lifting that we've done to protect heritage in our community.
And I have to agree with you. I think staff's done a great job promoting heritage in our community and trying to build that trust. And I do. I think that it's certain individuals in our community, certain special interest groups that, without realizing what they're doing, they're creating rifts. And when this misinformation goes out, I'm aware of multiple homeowners that want nothing to do with this, but they're not educated on the topic right now. And you know what? They will, and that's where I hope that at least they'll sit down and listen. But the more that I think things are forced upon them, or not from staff's not forcing upon them, but other individuals and special interest groups, I think that the more, the less dialogue we'll have, people will not want to be engaged, and this may not go well. You know what? At least we're going to have. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but I just want to. I want to thank you for bringing a lot of this information forward, the real information forward, so that residents of our community now can look at the real information and try to understand and help move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Vane.
Thank you. Antonetta, thank you, first of all, you and your staff. I know this is consuming a lot of your time, and I kind of think I know the answer, but have you guys really got any time to do anything else? We seem to be so very consumed with this one topic of heritage. I know it's one of our priorities, and I emphasize the one part because there is many other priorities, but are you able to keep up with the other stuff, or are you overworked? I'm just wondering if we need to, I don't know, look at how we deal with this stuff differently. That's all I'm curious about. But anyways, I'll let you think about that question for a second. The other question I have is, you have said, and Councillor Ritchie said, and a few others have said, that this map was not presented or drawn up by you, wasn't drawn up by the consultant. Who was it drawn up by?
You know, through you, Mr. Mayor, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. I don't want us to go back to the past. I feel like we've had these conversations.
Just curious.
Yeah, and you know, I think it may have been, we heard, you know, some limited public consultation may have happened in the creation of the map. Certainly, you know, we know that it was brought forward through Heritage Committee, through Councillor Bothwell, but we don't care how the map got here, and we want to move forward in a constructive, productive, helpful way so that if we have a chance at a district, it's a good chance, and we limit the amount of potential appeals and just fear in the community, because I can't tell you how many emails that we're dealing with and people feel confused, they feel fearful, and all of those are indicators of a potential appeal. I mean, in terms of, volume of work, yeah, planning's got a lot happening. I think we're trying to finalize the Grimsby Beach study, which is a priority. We've tried to make significant moves in heritage to try and build, again, trust and rapport with the community and protect those very valuable resources. And then there's the day-to-day, your regular planning development applications, minor variances in the various committees that we're a part of. So we're trying to do our best and serve the community well and not prioritize one area over the other and find balance in all of those. But certainly heritage has gotten a lot of profile and a lot of resources. A lot of the sort of co-op students that I bring in from other universities have been directed to supporting Bianca and helping her in the background to do the heavy lifting that we've been doing. And a lot of it is due to, some volunteerism that we've seen some successful moves there to try and support what we're doing through co-op placements. So happy to do those things and move the needle forward on heritage and improving development and improving the green agenda, which we're contributing to significantly in planning. But yeah, I mean, it all contributes to our day-to-day workload. But I think it's these, I don't want to call them unnecessary pieces, but these pieces that bring us further apart instead of closer together as a community towards common goals that keep us up at night and make us concerned, because we are trying to build relationships with the community, because ultimately that's how these things move forward. So I'll leave it at that.
I have to agree with Councillor Ritchie. I also have had a number of emails about people who are, let's say for lack of a better word, confused. One specifically spoke of, why is my home included in a Main Street East study when I don't live on Main Street East? It's the way that some of this mapping has been done. It confuses me for one thing, but I know some people are upset, and people have made comments, and I am, like Councillor Ritchie said, I'm concerned. I think we are going to have a number of appeals. And I think a lot of it may be due to the misinformation, and I hope by you clarifying some of it will help. But I still think there's too much information out there that, I mean, and a lot of people are getting guarded too. I appreciate some people have a lot of passion about this, and I support that. I'm all about passion. That's great. But we've got to somehow find a way to make sure that the information that's getting out there is getting to everybody and is correct. Because right now this is becoming a us against them kind of thing, and I don't want to see that. I think there's a lot of parts of Grimsby that, I fully support the Grimsby Beach one, and I support parts of Main Street East being protected. But I just want to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons, because some people have in the business community specifically have said that we're doing it for the wrong reasons, but that's fine. That's their opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I just want to make sure we do this correctly. That's all. I'm just want to ensure that. That's all. I'm kind of concerned. So anyways, I thank you for bringing forward the approach on the misinformation. Whether it's taken wrong or not, I don't believe it should be, because it is dealing with misinformation. So we want people to be educated, because the less they're educated, the more they're going to fight. So thank you, Antonetta. And thank you to your staff as well.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Could I just call the question, please? Call the question.
Mayor Jordan, could I just have a point of clarification?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Bothwell.
Maybe Antonetta can answer Councillor Vane's concern about why some homes that were not fronting Main Street were included, because I think the intention was that only the homes fronting Main Street be included. And I think the map that staff revised moved into a bunch of different little side streets. If you could just maybe clarify that, Antonetta, how that happened.
Antonetta?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's the same as what we've said previously. We're basically following the resources, zooming out so that we can zoom in. It's looking at those homes that are adjacent and those significant side streets with large clusters of heritage resources to glean how they contribute to our understanding, knowledge of Main Street East. Also keep in mind, a lot of people would have got the notice because it's everybody who's in the boundary plus 120 meter radius. So they see Main Street East, they're like, oh my goodness, am I included in this? They're not, but their opinion, their voices, their whatever information they could share, they all matter to us. So, you know, and I again, like we've always encouraged, if there's any questions we can help answer, or we have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, on our website, we want to treat that as a living document. So as we start to notice repeat questions, if you get a lot of those types of questions, we're happy to add more to that FAQ so that there is a constant sort of source of information that when the community asks a question, we can point to, and that information is updated. But again, it's part of the process to zoom out, include more properties in your just your background phase so that you can zoom in with intentionality, with your ability to create a defensible district. So it's part of the process, and happy to speak to any residents who have some questions.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell and Antonetta, for answering that question for me. I appreciate that.
All right, since there are no further speakers, the calling the question is kind of moot, Councillor Dunstall. So if you want to move the report being received, I just need a seconder, if that's okay with you. Councillor Cadwell's the seconder. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that report PA 21-49 Heritage Conservation District Study Update Report dated December 6, 2021 be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to notice of motion. Introduction date, December 20th, 2021. Subject firearms bylaw amendment requested by Councillor Bothwell. Whereas the November 15th, 2021 Council approved bylaw 2186, that being a bylaw to regulate the discharge of firearms and bows in the town of Grimsby, and whereas that bylaw shall be applied in conjunction and accordance with the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, C25, the Territorial Division Act 2002, SO 2002, C17, Schedule E, the Migratory Birds Convention Act 1994, SC 1994, C22, the Canadian Navigable Waters Act, RSC 1985, CN22, and other applicable legislation. And whereas the recent incidents of the discharge of firearms on Lake Ontario in close proximity to the shore of the town have evoked safety concerns from residents, and whereas the town of Grimsby is committed to ensuring a safe, vibrant, accessible waterfront for residents and visitors, and whereas municipalities including Kingston, Burlington, Hamilton, and Brighton have responded to similar concerns by limiting or prohibiting the discharge of firearms on the adjacent and navigable waters of Lake Ontario in accordance with law. And whereas council deems it prudent and necessary to address this public safety issue in an expeditious manner, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to review bylaw 21-86 to incorporate wording to prohibit the discharge of firearms within 300 meters of the shoreline of the town of Grimsby, and that the amending draft bylaw be brought back to council for consideration in Q1 of 2022. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the January 17th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting. All right, now we're moving to number 13, correspondence. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Counselor Dunstall. Seconder, Counselor Ritchie. Moved by Counselor Dunstall, second by Counselor Ritchie. Resolved that the following correspondence items be received. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority Board of Directors meeting November 19th, 2021. All in favor? That's carried. The next meeting of the Committee of the Whole is scheduled for January 17th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Meeting is adjourned. We'll be back at 8:25 for council. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Town of Grimsby Council meeting of Monday, December 20th, 21 to order. Can we all stand for the playing of the national anthem? Niagara region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawindaronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor
I
Dunstall.
want to lift something.
Councillor Main, yes, you'd like
I
to
just
lift
wanted to
something?
lift that we had a conversation about the voting, and we agreed to get rid of the
Counselor, it's 13B and it doesn't happen until we get to the minutes.
Oh,
sorry to interrupt, my brother.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. You got me twice now. Yeah, that's what I want to lift from when we get there. Thank you.
All right, I have Councillor Dunstall as the mover. And seconder, Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Bothwell. Result of the agenda for the December 20th, 21 council meeting be approved. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to number 6, adoption of previous minutes. Councillor Bothwell.
I could let Councillor Vane go first because I think he wanted to speak to lifting an item from.
All right.
The 6th and
Thank you, Councillor Vane. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What am I going ahead with? I'm sorry, I missed that.
This is where you wanted to lift your item?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Bothwell. I'm so sorry. Yes, I want to lift the item about voting, where we talked about eliminating phone voting. I would like us to rediscuss that. There was a couple of emails that came out. One and two was to all councillors, and I would like us to discuss it. So do we discuss it now, or are we going to just lift it for now?
We lift it now for separate consideration to discuss later.
Okay. Geez.
All right, so we have Councillor Bain, a seconder to lift that. Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that resolution number CW 21-287 of the Committee of the Whole minutes of December 6, 2021 be lifted for separate consideration. So we'll address that later or now? No, later. Okay. All right. All in favor of lifting it? Sorry. That's carried. All right. So we can discuss this now that it has been lifted.
Sorry,
yes,
Mayor.
Councillor Bothwell?
Should I just wanted to make a clarification on the minutes. So although I let
why don't you do that now, and then we'll discuss this.
Thank you. It's just a quick, I just wanted to say an appreciation to staff for correcting the minutes of the December 6th meeting under the council endorsement package for the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee. I did note that some comments were missing from the motion that were with respect to 13 Mountain and 19 Elm. And if people are interested, the motion has been corrected to include the correct wording that was passed by the Heritage Committee on November 23rd, where it does indicate that it was resolved that it be noted that the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee expresses concern with the height and massing of the proposed building, and should council approve the development application, Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee endorses the following recommendations and went further. So I just wanted to thank staff for correcting that, because it was brought forward and needed to be included. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Now we're moving to the lifted item. Councillor Bain, would you like to lead off?
Just the only thing is, like I say, I've had a couple of people, one specifically went to all councils, I think, about people who are, let's say, more mature in life and who have had difficulty grasping the concepts of electronic voting and may not be mobile enough to come to polling stations and stuff like that, or to voting stations. And I think just in fairness, because I'll reference the one that was sent to all council. As the individual said, they're 80 some odd years old. They're not technologically, whatever. They don't like computers, I guess. And I think it's only fair that everybody deserves the right to vote. I think voting is a right. And I think that if people, even if it's just a few people, still feel the desire and the need to use phone voting for whatever reason, if they don't feel like using computers, they feel more secure, they can't get to the voting stations, whatever. I just think we need to reconsider whether we actually eliminate that. And it's just, all I'm asking is a reconsideration. I'm not saying that it's good or bad. I'm just saying that people have raised it as an issue. And I think that one of the big points of this council is that we always really endorse the idea of listening to our constituents. And I think in some ways, if we don't consider it, we're kind of excluding people from the right to vote. Again, just my opinion. I said to the constituent I would raise it, and I'll leave it at that. And I don't know how the rest of council feels about it, but that's just, I do believe that they should have a right to vote. And if that's the only way they feel they can vote, then I think we shouldn't be taking it away. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. So through the mayor, the comments that I received, we all received, was talking about the survey that we did online. Obviously didn't include respondents of people that don't go online. And so we took a survey online of if people were comfortable to use voting online. And we got, I think, some results that said yes, but the people who are not able or comfortable or in whatever way inclined to use the internet, obviously didn't respond to that online survey. So I know there's some cost involved with having a telephone voting, and I know that maybe we're heading towards phasing it out as people get really more involved on the internet. But maybe it's just another election away or 2 more elections away, and right now with these outbreaks going on and with the case numbers higher than they were last year. Sorry, I guess the election's not for another until next fall. But I don't know. There might be some. It might be valid to have one more term of telephone voting. And so I have 2 questions for the clerk. One, how much will it cost to include telephone voting? And 2, how many people in 2018 used the telephone voting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I wouldn't know the cost until I go out for RFP in 2022. In 2018, we had 522 electors that used telephone voting.
Okay, so 500 is a significant amount. Do you recall how many electors we had total?
In total, approximately 9,000. I'm looking at Peter for some help, but around 9,000. 9,000.
Okay, so round it off 10,000. So it's 5% of the people who voted via telephone. I didn't know that. I maybe should have paid more attention. And do we know how much it cost in 2018 for our telephone voting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, because we do get the internet voting, usually it comes as a package with the telephone voting. So I don't know the exact amount that we incurred in 2018 for the 2, but I will know more once we go out for tender.
Okay, so it's my opinion. I think maybe at least one more round that we included. I wish I knew a little more about the price, but 500 voters, 5%, that's significant. Thank you, Sarah.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Bain and Councillor Sharp have said everything that I was going to say, but I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we reinstate the telephone voting. If there is 500 people, and that is 5%, and I think the individuals that have spoken out to us have made a valid point, and I think we should reinstate it. So I'd like to put a motion on the floor to reinstate telephone voting.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a mover and seconder, so that motion takes precedent. We can still have discussion on it. So Councillor Bothwell, would you like to continue the discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just was looking up some follow-up stuff on the last election, and the Township of Clearview and a number of other municipalities wrote about their experience with telephone voting when they were looking at how to do their 2022 upcoming election. And Clearview, they used a company called Dominion. Their company, in the report that was presented to council for their options, they chose not to do telephone voting, but their reasoning was, with very few exceptions, most municipalities in Ontario who used telephone voting in 2018 experienced issues using the telephone voting option. Among those issues was confusion by the voters due to long lists of candidates and the need to do multiple confirmations. On average, the telephone voting system was used by a very small number of voters. In most jurisdictions, less than 5%, but these voters were responsible for the largest number of complaints, and many required additional steps to be taken to assist them during the telephone voting process. As a result, voting time was increased, along with general voter disenfranchisement. That's what they're saying. And this deputy returning officer just also noted that he can attest to the complications that voters found using the telephone. There were many different steps to take because there's so many races. There's 4 races: mayor, deputy mayor, ward councillor, and school candidate. Some voters experienced difficulty. They wouldn't proceed forward with all the races, and then they ended up hanging up after they'd casted only their vote for a mayor or a councillor, and therefore their ballot would be lost and it would show as not completed and not cast. And phonetics with telephone voting can be difficult. The pronunciation of candidate names is key, and working with the automated voice to list the candidates can be a lengthy process. So they've noted this deputy clerk spoke with neighboring clerks in other municipalities and noted the same issues for a majority who've used this method in the past. So my question to the clerk is, should we proceed with telephone voting? I guess you're going to have to put that in the RFP to ensure that they make it available. And what can we do to ensure we don't have these types of complications? Should we use telephone voting? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Sorry. Yes, I am aware of that report. There were complications in 2018. We would need to divert more resource in doing the audit with telephone voting if council chooses to go that path. That's why some of the recommendations that I did provide at the last meeting was to do more advanced pollings. So we would have town hall open prior to the election for a few weeks, so electors can come to one of our side rooms to vote more privately or get one-on-one assistance with the voting by internet. So we were hoping to mitigate those issues by providing internet. However, if council wishes to include telephone, we will include it in our RFP and the audit that we will be doing.
Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Good discussion. I read through that email too, and I spoke with staff and got some numbers in that. I think I'm just thinking of my mother, who's a senior, and she doesn't have a computer. And I think what we're offering is great to the residents, the polling stations, possibly maybe 2 polls per ward, or at least 1 poll per ward, where Sarah's been speaking and addressing. I think that's fantastic. I think just adding the telephone just kind of enhances our, excuse me, our way of voting for the residents. Again, it is 5%. And, we could even be hit. I mean, it'll be October, 22nd or 24th, whenever the election is in 2022. I mean, we can get some crazy weather too, like especially in the fall, we had some really crazy storms. And, maybe having the option of a phone, if we do have some very, bad weather conditions, that would help anyway. So, yeah, I'm glad Councilor Vane brought this up again, and I'm supporting it. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd say in light of of the current uncertainty around COVID, and there are many who don't have internet, such as my mother-in-law. I think that, telephone voting, making it available one more round at least, gives us an opportunity to see if, to see how that changes. Will there be significantly less or significantly more? So I think we should include it in one more round. And hopefully, given the report of telephone voting of some of the challenges that it had, that they've been able to make improvements in the past 4 years to make it more user-friendly. So I completely support this.
Councillor Sharp.
If anyone needs help online voting, I'm willing to come by and help you out. I'll bring my laptop or something over, and you can have help. Hope to vote for me, but I'd be willing to help if anyone needs any.
Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Sharp. Resolved that resolution number CW 21-287 be amended to include telephone voting for the 2022 municipal election. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to the rest of the minutes. Need a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Dunstall. Seconder, Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole minutes of December 6th and Council minutes of December 13th, 2021 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to our consent agenda. Need a mover and seconder for the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolve that the council hereby approves the following items and the various consent items be approved on the recommendation as contained therein. Report FIN 21-38, interim tax levy. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to number 10. Resolutions. Councillor Vardy, offshore bird hunting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. There's been a number of inquiries about this, and I understand why Councillor Bothwell brought her motion forward. But in the interim, I think it's important that at least we provide what the rules and regulations are right now, so that our residents who are concerned can have access to the information with, on our website. I think that would be helpful to residents. So that's my motion.
Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Jordan. And thanks, Councillor Vardy. I voted in favor of hearing this the other night. I think it's important we can get information up there. I'm a little concerned that we make sure we get the right information. And I'm thinking maybe what might be best is to post links to the bodies who are responsible for that, so that we don't have to take responsibility. It's a big load to put on staff to make them make sure that they found the right information to the right degree. There's exceptions to things. So if we can give like a heading, like in a topic about that, and then with a link to the body responsible for that, because it kind of, it's in their purview, so we should let them give the information and us just direct our residents to that information. Is my opinion. So I agree there should be something on our website, but I want to be careful that we don't rewrite another ministry's regulation, and that we just direct our residents to it. Thanks.
I'm fine with that.
Councillor Dunstall.
Yeah, I just wanted, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that I support what Councillor Vardy is wanting to do. I'm a little confused. I lived on the lake for 10 years and I don't ever recall people duck hunting in previous years. So is it something that we did, changing the bylaw, the firearms and crossbow bylaw, that encouraged people to go out on the lake and start hunting ducks? I'm like, I've never had a call like I got a call too, and I never had a call in previous years. So what, I'm just a little confused as to what brought this on this year and not previous years. But yeah, we need to do something. I quite agree. I've just, does anybody know? I'm not a hunter, so I was just curious to know why all of a sudden people are out there on the lake duck hunting this time of year. And it's not legal, I would think. You can't be out on the lake shooting ducks, can you?
Apparently it is.
It is legal. You can hunt them out there. Okay. That's
Councillor Ritchie, not to put you on the spot or anything, but since you had said in the past that you were getting your hunting license during the test, did you do you have any information that you can add?
Yeah.
I don't have any information except that I do. I do understand that it is legal to hunt in the water, and we would not have necessarily jurisdiction in that area whatsoever. So I tend to side with Councillor Sharp. I don't think that we should be, I'll save my comments. I'll put my hand up. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Vane's up next. Or on Councillor Dunstall, were you finished?
Yeah, I am. I don't have anything. I support what Councillor Vardy is trying to do, and we need to help wherever we can.
Great. Councillor Vane, you're up next.
I support what Councillor Vardy is putting forward, but I do agree with Councillor Dunstall and Councillor Sharp and Councillor Ritchie that as I've said many times now, I still think it's outside of our purview to do this. I know that you mentioned other municipalities, but I just don't know where they feel they can get the right. And having said that, I'm going to answer Councillor Dunstall's question in a minute to a possible answer. What is bylaw supposed to do if somebody calls and says there's somebody shooting on the water? Bylaw doesn't have a boat. Bylaw has no jurisdiction in the water. So I just don't see the point. I think as it's been made very clear to us by bylaw and the Director of Planning and Bylaw, call the OPP. That's who you call, not NRP. They're not going to do anything. They don't have a boat to go out and do anything, and they don't have the authority. So call the OPP. And I agree with the Councillor Vardy saying we should put this out there and just even add a common sense comment in there. You can't do it within, there is laws that says you can only shoot within a certain amount of distance of homes and populations and stuff like that. So there is laws there. In regards to Councillor Dunstall's question, the government passed some months ago a law that allows hunters to hunt cormorants. I believe that's the correct pronunciation. They're allowed to kill 15 a day as long as they pick them up. They got to pick them up. They're garbage. Sorry, for lack of a better word, I don't know that much about the birds, but the only word I've heard of them used is they're garbage birds. They eat all our fish. They don't have any nutritional value to human beings. So that's the only thing I can think of. But also, just to clarify, the notice that was put out by both bylaw and the director separately was that if there's a motor on the boat, they can't be shooting from the boat. And I don't recall if the original email talked about a motor or not. So in answer to the question, it is legal to hunt from water, just the same as it's legal to hunt in certain areas as well. But again, there is rules and restrictions on what you can do. And I just want to close with saying, I would feel more comfortable if we got a legal opinion as to whether we have the legal authority to pass this kind of bylaw, because I just don't think we do. But anyways, it's just my opinion. That's all. Thank you.
If I could just give a point of clarification, my motion, you're referring to Councillor Bothwell's motion, not my motion.
Sorry, Councillor Vardy, I do support your motion, though. That's what I was trying to say. I do support what you're trying to do. I think the more education, it comes back to what we just talked about, the study of the different areas. The more information we put out there, the better, the less calls we're going to get, and the more educated our public is. So I do support your motion, 100%.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you through the mayor. I don't support the motion as written. It says here that staff take immediate action, consult all relevant authorities, and post accurate information about what is and isn't allowed on the town website. And I don't think we have jurisdiction. I agree with Councillor Sharp that we should be posting links and give it to the jurisdiction of the people. I don't think that we as councillors should be directing our staff and taxpayers' dollars to do jobs that really isn't theirs. If they can post a link and give it to someone else that is their jurisdiction, I think that's a wise use of taxpayers' dollars. But to turn around and have them start doing all kinds of work, I mean, next thing you know, maybe we'll be asking them to cut the grass in Hamilton. I don't know. I'm joking, but that's what I feel.
Make a friendly amendment, Councillor.
If you'd like to make I can make a friendly amendment.
I said before, I'm happy to post links.
Yeah, if staff were to post links.
I just want the correct information available to our residents.
Yeah,
so how you do it. So I'm happy with a friendly amendment to say that to post links, but I do think we have a responsibility to make that information accessible to our residents.
And if it was for the links, if that's where we go, I would support it. I just don't support them consulting the authorities and and doing all this work, but to post links to the proper jurisdiction and authorities so people can look to see what is and is not allowed, I would support that.
Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yeah, I didn't vote for it last meeting because I didn't want to discuss it without any staff being linked into our meeting, which they weren't. So I see Henry's here now, and apparently under the Minister of Natural Resources, Grimsby is Unit 88 with regards to what hunting is allowed and under the provincial regulations. So I'm just wondering, just for, I don't know how many people in the public are watching, maybe if it'd be all right if Henry could just give us a brief discussion to this. And I do support the friendly amendment that the links just be put up to. So would it be okay to have Henry just to give us a bit of a closed nose version with regards to, as again, we're Unit 88 under the provincial MRN. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Henry, welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the actual Zone 88 from my research through the firearms bylaw is for large game hunting. So for example, that was just from that research. It was so it allowed or not allowed the use of a shotgun to hunt large game. So like deer, moose, elk, that sort of style. It wasn't really speaking to the migratory birds or anything like small game. Small game is more of just widespread in the provincial hunting regulations. But we just advise if there are any questions about that, like to contact the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry would be the best people to answer these questions.
Thank you, Henry, because I was with some hunters on the weekend and they mentioned to me about that Grimsby's Unit 88. We didn't get into all the details. I thought maybe there was some kind of a reflection to what we're discussing tonight, but thanks for that clarification too, Henry.
Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan, and I support Councillor Vardy's motion. I just, again, for clarification from Mr. Bosey, the Councillor Dunstall mentioned how come all of a sudden we're seeing hunters shooting ducks on the shoreline, and I just wondered if you could clarify. The original bylaw we had in 1976 did not permit gun hunting at all. It was prohibited in Grimsby. The only reason that a hunter or a person could use a firearm or discharge a firearm was to protect their farm or their livestock or their crops. And that has always been available to farmers to protect their crops and their wildlife, irregardless of our municipal bylaw. So in 2005, the council, for whatever reason, chose to implement the Sunday gun hunting provincial regulation. And that's why I questioned, I said, why would council that had a prohibition on discharging firearms at all in the limits of Grimsby approve a bylaw in 2005 to allow Sunday gun hunting? And the thing about the Sunday gun hunting regulation is that it does say it has to adhere to all municipal bylaws. So I'm thinking, and maybe you can clarify, that the reason we haven't seen duck hunters is because we have not had a bylaw that allowed for gun hunting at all in Grimsby. It was prohibited, whether it be along the shoreline or anywhere within the territorial waters. The Navigable Waters Act does extend Grimsby into the water of Lake Ontario. So is that not correct then, that the reason they're out there now is because our new bylaw that we just passed allowing gun hunting in Grimsby basically gave them that jurisdiction to go into Lake Ontario? I don't know. I just wondered, because it didn't make any sense that all of a sudden this year they're starting.
Yeah.
Mayor, can we stick to the resolution for now, Mayor, please, and then allow us, if the notice of motion gets passed, the resolution the 17th, and Henry and the team can prepare the proper information to the council. But I really respect if we could move forward just on the resolution right now.
Henry, did you want to comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just as a clarifying comment, the Zone 88, just doing some quick research here from my previous firearms discharge bylaw, the Zone 88 is meant for Sunday gun hunting. It's not meant for large game. I just wanted to clarify that. And just looking at the map quickly, unfortunately, Lake Ontario is not colored with allowing for Sunday gun hunting. So unfortunately, at this time, does not look like that would extend into the water. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Bothwell. Whereas there has been significant concerns raised by residents about offshore bird hunting off Grimsby's Lake Ontario shoreline. Therefore, be it resolved that staff take immediate action to consult all relevant authorities and post accurate links on the town's website. All in favor?
Point of order.
Councillor Ritchie, point of order.
Or not a point of order. I'd like to make a friendly amendment that therefore be resolved that staff take action to post all relevant links about what is and isn't, or where people can find information about what is and isn't allowable on the town website.
I'm fine with that.
I'll read the amended resolution. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Bothwell. Whereas there has been significant concerns raised by residents about offshore bird hunting on Grimsby's Lake Ontario shoreline. Therefore, be it resolved that staff take immediate action to post all relevant links of property authorities on the town's website. All in favor? That's carried. All right, I don't think we have a regional councillor update tonight. So now we move to announcements. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add to your first comments at the start of the meeting with regards to the vaccination clinic that was held at Town Hall yesterday. I just want to thank staff for I guess it was relatively a bit of a short notice, I believe, but I can be corrected on that, that they put all that together, that clinic. I thought it was fantastic. Drove by a couple times. I got my booster last Wednesday in Hamilton, but anyways, it was a very busy beehive of a lot of people waiting in line. I think the weather was cool, but it was decent. But personally, a real heartfelt thank you to staff, because I understand that staff, when the clinic closed, I think, well, as the mayor mentioned, I think it was 409 vaccinations. So I don't even think they stayed open until 7 o'clock, like I heard they were supposed to. But I think staff stayed quite a bit later to get Town Hall back in order. And you know what a commitment from our staff to the community. And I just want to thank them very much for their dedication to the community in working with the Red Cross and hosting that clinic. The other thing too, I just want to say I was also in attendance at the Peach King hockey game for the tribute to Dougie, as he's well known in that. I thought it was a great event. As the mayor mentioned, the family was there, had a chance to chat with many members of the family, and even watching the video it was pretty, it was an awesome video that the Peach Kings put together. And actually, I got to see the Nickersons' mother and father that I knew very well. And it was just a great event. That's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. And just a further on the clinic, again, yes, staff did a great job. And staff actually instituted a number system that I really think reduced confusion and allowed the process to run very smoothly. And they actually, the Red Cross stayed until they got through the 409 numbers that were given out. So it was a great success given by all. And we didn't find out until 4 p.m. on Friday that it was going to happen on Sunday. So it was a great job with very short notice.
Yeah, the numbers were great, Mayor, because when I was in Hamilton, I waited at a Metrolinx GoVax bus, and you were just hoping they didn't run out, but there was no numbers set up, which was doing it that way. I thought that's a very, it's a good way to do it. Anyways, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Just want to take this opportunity to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you to the mayor. Councillor Vardy beat me to the punch there. Yeah, I also want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, or Happy Holidays, depending what you may or may not celebrate. Please be safe, and we'll see you in the new year.
All right. On that note, yes, happy and safe holidays to everyone. And the next meeting of council is scheduled for January 17th, 2022, following the committee of the whole. We still have council business. We are going to move into closed session now, and we will return after the closed session. I'll read the electronic participation closed session statement declaration. Good evening, members of council. Before we begin the closed session, all members are reminded that any discussions in closed are to remain confidential as per our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Grimsby. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, and to confirm no one else is present with you, and confirm no one else can hear this closed session, and confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet or computer for the purpose of this video conferencing only, and confirm that you're not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all of the above, please reply, I understand and confirm to all the statements. Councillor Bothwell?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Dunstall?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Cadwell?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Ritchie?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Sharp?
I understand and confirm to all except the electronic devices.
Councillor Vane?
I understand and confirm to all statements.
Councillor Vardy?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
And I myself, I understand and confirm to all the statements. Need a mover and seconder to move into close? Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that council meet in closed session under section 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding 362 North Service Road, and closed meeting under section 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, specifically regarding and under section 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, specifically relating to Grimsby Beach property ownership and shoreline protection. All in favor to move into closed? And that's carried. Now in closed.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back to the public. We're now back in open session. Need a mover and seconder for receiving of the closed session information. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that confidential report PA 21-45 be received and the staff proceed with the directions provided in closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Mover and seconder for receiving report DPW 2133. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, seconder Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that confidential report DPW 21-33 be received and the staff proceed with the directions provided in the closed session. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
Mover and seconder for the bylaws, first reading. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 21-93 to 21-97 inclusive, and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Mover and seconder for second and third reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 21-93 to 21-97 inclusive read a first time, now be read a second time and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
Mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-98 and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried.
Aye.
Second and third reading of the confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder. Councillor Bain, mover. Councillor Ritchie, seconder. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-98 read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. We'll see everyone next year following Committee of the Whole on January 17th, 2022. Everyone have a great